Chapter 594. You'll be the one to die, and I'll lead the humans to destroy the heavenly realm. They were about to die, so this humiliation was nothing. It felt so good to destroy the future of the human race. When the ancient human warriors died, they were filled with anger and sorrow for some reason. Had the human race forces in the Outland developed to such a scale? According to Bailey, he had to walk this path and no one else could. But she never explained why. Thinking of this, he panicked and lost the desire to fight. He turned around, turned into a white light, and shot into the sky. This time, little Kong did not have that heavy memory, nor did he have to carry the mission of reviving the human race. However, this person had the aura of a human emperor, which made him suspect that this was a newly born human emperor. Roar! At this moment, sensing his power, this powerful prayer bead was about to destroy this planet. This was the backup plan left by the incarnation of the Donghuang, the last step of the original body's instruction. Lu Wu understood and hated himself for being useless. He felt that he was not worthy of such a heavy responsibility. At this moment, in the forum of the 5 servers, the players were having a heated discussion about today's expedition mission. He struggled to stand up and scanned his surroundings, but he could not find Lu Wu. At this moment, Papa Kong could not help but shake his head. For some reason, he felt that Kong had changed. He seemed to have become more like a child. Although he did not know the truth, he chose to believe in Lil Bailey. This spirit would be inherited. In such a doomsday scene, Lu Wu slapped the face of the incarnation of the Donghuang. The shadow of the divine beast Bian appeared behind Lu Wu and carried him to the figure that had fallen to the ground. Seeing that the indicator light on the gaming chamber was still on, Papa Kong sighed and pressed the button of the gaming chamber. The pair of eyes that were observing everything in the dark slowly dissipated at this moment. Looking at the crazed face of the incarnation of the Donghuang, Lu Wu grabbed his neck and lifted him up bit by bit. "I made breakfast for you. Go eat it, it's time for school." "What's wrong?" Papa Kong was a little surprised, but at this moment, Lu Wu's heart was undoubtedly in pain. Perhaps in Papa Kong's eyes, this was the child he wanted. Lu Wu did not speak. He walked toward the incarnation of the Donghuang, his clenched fist still stained with blood. Looking at the figure floating above his head, the Donghuang clone's face was filled with fear. Boom! The Donghuang incarnation smashed a deep pit into the ground. Lu Wu arrived at the same time, and his fists rained down on the Donghuang incarnation's face. Let's move on. There were laughter, sadness, and despair along the way, but Lu Wu had learned a spirit from his ancestors. Xing Tian's dance of Ganqi, his ferocious will remain. Kong rubbed his head and stood up. He turned to look at his father, and a sweet smile suddenly appeared on his face. He stood up and threw himself into his father's arms. "Are you afraid?" That person sneered, but his eyes were filled with anger. As the older generation of the human race, they protected their descendants until the very last moment of their lives. Ahem, so you only have the aura of a human sovereign, but you don't have the strength of a human sovereign. I was wrong. After landing on the ground, the clone of the East Emperor staggered to his feet with a bloody face. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Lu Wu with a smile on his face. It was also because of him that the Ice Ghost Legion, which was loyal to his previous life, had fallen. Even if he was just a clone, he was still hated. If Xiaohao was so strong that he could not defeat him, then he would die with him. At the moment of his death, the smile on his face disappeared, and all that was left was the fear of dying with a grievance as he waited. The door of the gaming chamber opened slowly. Since he was going to die anyway, then he would let this human sovereign die with him. Feeling the pain on his cheek, the clone of the East Emperor wanted to be angry, but when he thought that this human sovereign was going to die with him, he chose to laugh instead. "I miss you!" Little Kong rubbed himself in his father's arms, then raised his head and looked into his father's eyes. Keep fighting, keep fighting. Do you want to run? You don't have a chance anymore. Die with me with the destruction of this planet. You have no choice." The fallen Donghuang incarnation laughed hysterically. In order to protect the players, they chose to burn their souls. Although Lil Bei Li had the ability to repair the soul fragments, their souls had long been burnt to ashes and nothing was left. He did not understand why. It was obvious that any one of them could do better than him. So why did he have to bear this responsibility? He did not want to take this step unless it was absolutely necessary. But at this moment, he had no other choice because he no longer had the strength to fight this weak human sovereign in front of him. He even realized that the human army on the other side of the barrier had disappeared. This cross-border battle had deeply shocked them. When Kang Yi burned his soul and chose to sacrifice himself, he entrusted a request to Lu Wu. Blood splattered everywhere, but Lu Wu was completely in a state of madness. He kept hammering the face of the clone of the East Emperor until it was a bloody mess. Fists filled with rage smashed madly on that hateful face at this moment. But even so, no one knew that the player who was at the top of the alchemist ranking leaderboard would never appear again. No matter how difficult the road ahead was, he would never give up. During breakfast, Kang Yi, who was usually quiet, took the initiative to talk to his father. He even patted his chest and promised that he would study hard and get first place in class every time, which made his father laugh happily. At this moment, Lu Wu suddenly threw him to the ground. His appearance was like a flash in the pan, blooming only for a short while. However, the clone of the East Emperor was laughing maniacally. Just like the players who did not know the truth, he would tell the players the truth sooner or later. Speaking of which, it was still worth it. After all, he was just a clone. While the other party had the potential to become a human sovereign, Lu Wu did as he was told. "You are the one who will die, not me. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Pathetic clone. Stay here and accompany the ancient warriors of the human race," Lu Wu said as he looked at the clone of the East Emperor with a pitiful gaze. Then he disappeared with the wind. However, Kang Yi's sacrifice just now had seriously injured him. He could not fly fast with his injured body, let alone break through the space barrier and head to the outskirts. Hearing this, Father Kong smiled and rubbed little Kang Yi's head. Along the way, Lu Wu had always felt that he was useless and useless. However, there were still powerhouses who stood in front of him and became his protectors. Some of them even sacrificed their lives for him. The clone of the East Emperor, who obeyed the orders of the main body, spent a lot of effort to set up the barrier. At the same time, he also left behind a prayer bead bestowed by the main body inside the planet. What made him feel worse was that all the prayer beads were destroyed in the explosion. His strongest source of power was gone. The death of Kang Yi and the ancient warriors of the human race could no longer be salvaged. Hearing this, Lu Wu smiled and rubbed little Bei Li's head, nodding his head. A long night had passed. Realizing that his son had not woken up yet, Father Kong could not help but go to Kang Yi's room. Lu Wu did not answer. Instead, he slapped Kang Yi's face. While Kang Yi was still in shock, Lu Wu slapped him again. While Kang Yi was still in shock, Lu Wu's figure suddenly appeared beside him. Lu Wu grabbed Kang Yi's neck and flung him to the ground. He used Kang Yi's memories to create a new him because his father could not live without him. Slap, slap, slap. Who are you? The new emperor. The clone of the East Emperor was sure that the main body did not give him any memory of this person. At this moment, the ground was collapsing and sinking rapidly. Lava flowed and spewed freely. The wandering planet became extremely unstable, as if it would explode at any time. What right did he have to make these seniors sacrifice their lives just to protect his secret or him? It's a pity that I have to die here with you. Although I'm just a clone, I once thought about my own future. What a pity! Looking at Lu Wu, who was standing in front of him, the clone of the East Emperor sneered. As the sky fell and the earth cracked, the lava swallowed his body. However, he still did not understand why this was happening. In the past, Kong Yi was not very close to him. He was a little too mature. He was not like an 8-year-old primary school student who was always thinking about things with a bitter and vengeful attitude. Now he was just an ordinary 8-year-old child. He would also be a good child in his father's eyes, accompanying him for the rest of his life. Therefore, the current Kong Yi made him feel a little different. Did you know that in order to lure Xiaohao here and make him stay here, I had a backup plan? I didn't expect to use it on you, but it's worth it. You have the aura of the Emperor, and your potential is even more terrifying than Xiaohao's. As he spoke, the clone of the East Emperor stomped on the ground lightly, and a surge of power instantly seeped into the ground. The spirit that Kong Yi displayed before his death was the legacy that he left for Lu Wu and the players. Especially after seeing Kong Yi and the human ancient warriors die in battle, the anger that was buried in Lu Wu's heart finally erupted. He had to inform the main body of this news. A new emperor had been born, and the crisis of the heaven realm was coming. At this moment, the ground suddenly began to crack, and lava continuously spewed out from it. All right. Kong Yi crawled out of his father's arms and ran down the stairs. No matter how much he vented, he would still die here with Lu Wu. How is this possible? How is this possible? I don't believe it. After returning to the artifact space, Lil Bailey quickly came to Lu Wu's side. She seemed to want to comfort him, but she didn't know what to say. The tremors continued to intensify, and the world seemed to be ushering in the end. The wind howled and lightning flashed. Lu Wu roared and bombarded the clone of the East Emperor with his fists. In the end, he grabbed the clone by the neck and lifted him up. Then he punched the clone in the chest and sent him flying. Believe in yourself. You are still growing, and you can't be replaced. Only you can do the last step. He was the ancestor of the human race, and he lived up to his name. Ha ha ha, do you think you can escape? This world is already collapsing, and you won't be able to escape with your strength. Stay with me. With your company, I won't be lonely. The clone of the East Emperor laughed hysterically, and he looked at Lu Wu with eyes full of madness. However, even after losing his head, he still wielded the battle axe resolutely. This image remained in the players' hearts, and it could not be erased. At this moment, the clone of the East Emperor, who was still laughing hysterically, was stunned. Chapter 595. Early the next morning, after making breakfast for Bei Li, Lu Wu entered the artifact space and began to read the information that Bei Li had compiled for him, learning about the artifact. After the cross-border battle yesterday, Lu Wu also discovered some of the hidden dangers of the artifact. The long-distance teleportation of the player legion across worlds would cause the connection between the artifact and the players to become unbreakable. Although the East Emperor's clone had spent several years to set up that barrier, it was impossible to break it. Lu Wu thought that the artifact's ability was almost unsolvable, so the unexpected situation was beyond his expectations. He asked Lil Bei Li about it, and Lil Bei Li gave him an explanation. The reason was simple. It had to do with distance. The main body of the artifact was a ring in Lu Wu's hand, and the artifact space was actually hidden beside Lu Wu, more like a parallel space that he carried with him. The area of absolute safety that the artifact space could cover was only the size of the 3 realms. Therefore, the long-distance teleportation of the player legion had exceeded the area of absolute safety of the artifact. That was why there was such a huge accident when they encountered the barrier. It was actually very easy to solve this problem. As long as Lu Wu led the player legion to the landing site, the artifact space would also follow, forming an area of absolute safety at the landing site. In other words, Lu Wu only needed to personally lead the legion in the future cross-border battle. In the area of absolute safety, no matter how strong the opponent was, as long as the location of the artifact space was not detected, no matter how strong the barrier was, it would never be able to block the connection between the artifact and the players. Lil Bei Li was very confident about this. After understanding the reason, Lu Wu heaved a sigh of relief. The existence of the artifact was the foundation of the players' natural disaster. If the artifact was limited, why would Lu Wu risk the players' lives? Even for this cross-border expedition, Lu Wu had carefully scouted the wandering star before he set off. Only then did he feel at ease to allow the players to depart. However, he almost made a big mistake because he did not find the East Emperor's clone hidden deep under the wandering star. Now that he understood that the artifact space had an area of absolute safety and its reliability, Lu Wu was relieved. After that, he devoted himself wholeheartedly to his studies. It had been more than 3 years since he obtained the artifact. 3 years ago, he was just a very inconspicuous, ordinary person, running a small game website with no traffic and living a mediocre life. Over the past 3 years, Lu Wu felt that he had changed a lot and realized that he had grown a lot. But in his eyes, it was still not enough. It was far from enough. He had to hurry. The current peace in the human world was just an illusion. The Heaven Realm had always regarded the human race as an enemy, and the Heaven Realm could punish them at any time. The attitude of Dong Huang's incarnation could be seen from the battle outside the domain. Although Lu Wu did not know why the Heaven Realm did not choose to completely wipe out the human race, it was still unknown if the Heaven Realm would do so in the future. He did not dare to gamble. Therefore, Lu Wu felt that he had to be strong enough to fight against the danger before it arrived. Otherwise, he would be letting down those human pioneers who had died in battle. The feeling of shouldering a heavy burden gave Lu Wu a strong determination to become stronger. At this moment, he was no longer the Lu Wu who was unwilling to learn and improve no matter how much Lil Bei Li tried to persuade him. Reading the artifact entry-level creation and application manual written by Lil Bei Li, Lu Wu was extraordinarily serious. In fact, he could use the artifact to directly copy many of the contents in the manual into his mind. But he did not do so. Just like the players who learned life classes, he did so to learn the detailed process of creation and pave the way for his own invention in the future. If he only relied on copying knowledge, he would only be able to copy the template in his mind and would not be able to innovate anymore. Lu Wu desired to be like Lil Bei Li and be able to create whatever she wanted to create. After a while, Lu Wu closed the manual and waved his hand. A blood-stained tooth appeared in his hand. He had lost a lot of soul coins in the cross-border battle yesterday, but it was not for nothing, because he had obtained the tooth of Dong Huang's incarnation. Originally, Lu Wu wanted Lil Bei Li to make it into the negative totem of Dong Huang Tai, so that it could absorb Dong Huang Tai's strength over time. Just like the bronze god tree, he would be weakened by the absorption of the players. However, Lil Bei Li shook her head and refused. The reason was simple. Because Dong Huang Tai's strength was too strong. It was too risky to directly connect with the negative totem. Maybe he would discover the existence of the artifact space. So, it was better not to do it for the sake of caution. After understanding the reason, Lu Wu gave up on the idea of making Dong Huang Tai's negative totem. But the blood-stained tooth was not useless. Lu Wu was already preparing to give Dong Huang Tai a surprise. Beiki, Mansion of the Dead. In the central square, Amo Xiaoxin had a proud smile on his face. He looked at his mother with a smug expression. However, Amo Lanlan gave him a look of disdain. She felt that her son had gone down the wrong path. Instead of being a polemicist, he had chosen to become a decomposer. Moreover, he was so full of himself after getting the 23rd place. He was such a good-for-nothing. From Emo Lanlan's point of view, Emo Xiaoxin should have stirred up a storm in the forum and increased his bounty value. He should have reached a bounty of 10 million soul coins as soon as possible. This was what a qualified son should do. Now that he had become a decomposer without making any progress, it was simply putting the cart before the horse. He had definitely gone down the wrong path. Just kill yourself. It's too embarrassing to only get the 23rd place. Emo Lanlan was furious when she thought of this. She could not help but look at Emo Xiaoxin and say, "You said that I was just passing the exam. Don't you think that my current result is surprising?" Emo Xiaoxin could not help but glare at her. My son, Emo Lanlan, will either get the first place or no place at all. Otherwise, he will be a disgrace to me. Surprise? I'm a little scared now. Mo Lon Lon said with a look of disdain. Listen, this is what a biological mother should say. Mo Xiaoxin had mixed feelings when he heard this. Other biological mothers hoped that their sons would be more successful, but his mother was completely different. Not only was she an internet addict, she even gave birth to a son as a toy and a tool to make money. It was 2F* king real. Mo Xiaoxin immediately felt the strong malice from his mother. At this time, Mo Lon Lon opened the trading panel and threw hundreds of spherical crystals to Mo Xiaoxin. Since you've already changed your class, you can't waste it. Go and break these down. Mo Xiaoxin opened the analysis subconsciously. Spirit Core, rank 1 treasure. Item details. A spiritual crystal that has a small probability of being born in a spirit's body. It can be used for many life classes. Why are you giving me this? Mo Xiaoxin was stunned. It's too cheap to put this thing on the auction house. You can break it down into elements and sell it. You should be able to sell it for more money. Oh, by the way, give me all the money you earn. Mo Lon Lon reminded him in the end. What about the handling fee? Mo Xiaoxin glared after understanding his mother's idea. You want handling fee from your mother? Do you know how much money I spent to raise you? If I use this money to raise pigs, I can raise at least 10 of them. Moreover, the price of pork is rising now. 10 pigs might be able to exchange for a better set of purple equipment. Mo Lon Lon said with disdain. Pigs, purple equipment. Mo Xiaoxin could not help but ridicule his mother's analogy, although it did make sense. But my teacher taught me that a mother's love is selfless. Why can't I understand that? Why are you glaring at me? Hurry up and break it down and sell it. I've been short on money lately, and I can't help but want to sell you in advance. I'll do it right away. Mo Xiaoxin, who had a strong desire to live, immediately agreed. Good boy. Mo Lon Lon reached out and patted Mo Xiaoxin's shoulder. Then, she carried her sword and walked out of the city. Her destination was still the Ghost Mountains. She went in and out daily. Mo Xiaoxin trembled as he watched his mother leave. He had been suppressed by his mother since he was young. He did not even have a rebellious phase. How would he dare to rebel? Under the suppression of such an old mother, the consequence of rebellion was a beating. It was simple and violent, although he had a little fantasy that his mother wanted to sell him out as a joke. There was a high chance that his mother was serious. Mo Xiaoxin did not dare to gamble on this. He could not figure out his mother's train of thought. She was a godlike internet addict, his only nemesis on the spiritual level. He could not afford to offend her. He compromised. Thinking of this, he found an empty space in the mansion of the dead's central plaza. He took out the tools that were given to him after his job advancement and got ready to work. He broke down the hundreds of spirit cores. Mo Xiaoxin did not think much of it because it was a level 1 treasure. After all, he had reached the 3rd stage in the trial space. He had broken down a level 3 item with a passing 79.3% decomposition rate. This level 1 spirit core was not a problem for him at all. After activating his spirit eye, countless light spots gathered to form a galaxy in front of him. Mo Xiaoxin immediately began to check what elements these light spots were made of so that he could choose the corresponding frequency to break them off. After a while, Mo Xiaoxin was surprised to find that among these light spots there was a gray elemental light spot that occupied a 1/3 of the area. However, he had never seen this element in the introductory manual of a decomposer. The introductory manual recorded a total of 5,000 elements, all of which were suitable for beginners to break down. Therefore, Mo Xiaoxin could not help but suspect that this element was not a basic element, but an element of a higher level. Thinking of this, he immediately put away the items and walked towards the library of the underworld. After about 20 minutes of walking, after entering the library, everything around him changed. What appeared in front of him were rows of bookshelves that stretched as far as the eye could see. There was also a classification board hanging in each area. Weapons, equipment, spells, potion, refinement. The huge library in front of him was only on the first floor. Some players had analyzed the total area of the library of the underworld and found that it was almost the size of the underworld. Moreover, as the library adopted a parallel space model, it was set to have a limit on the number of players that could be accommodated in each space. Moreover, the players that entered the library would be evenly distributed to different planes, so there would not be a crowding situation. At this moment, there were already many players in this parallel space library. Most of them were gathered in the spells and skills area, learning new knowledge. And Mo Xiaoxin was also very familiar with this place. He immediately walked towards the newly opened Decomposer Knowledge area. As soon as he stepped into the Decomposer Knowledge area, the reading interface popped up. A series of book names were arranged in front of him. There was also a search bar on it for players to find the books they wanted. Seeing this, Mo Xiaoxin immediately entered the elemental table into the search bar. Instantly, the corresponding book appeared. Elemental Characteristics Table. Elemental Breakdown Encyclopedia. Elemental Table. Complete. Mo Xiaoxin did not hesitate to click on Elemental Table. Complete. Instantly, a book slowly moved from the bookshelf and floated in front of Mo Xiaoxin. Chapter 596. After getting the books he wanted, Mo Xiaoxin found a secluded place in the library and sat down to start studying. Unlike the introductory books, this elemental table described the different characteristics of 36,888 elements. Although it did not specify the method of decomposition, it was exactly what he wanted. Time passed slowly as he compared the colors and shapes of the elements. About an hour later, Mo Xiaoxin, who was reading the book, was overjoyed because he finally found the specific explanation of the gray element. The words and pictures on the book described the name and use of the element in detail. Negative element. Elemental details. A special element constructed from negative emotions and negative special energy. It is very common but very difficult to separate. It is classified as one of the top 3,000 elements. Elemental function. Can be used for training, but cannot be used for professions such as blacksmithing and pharmacology. Mo Xiaoxin was shocked when he saw the introduction on the book. He did not expect a top-notch element to be classified as the hardest to decompose among the Grade 1 items. Speaking of negative elements, he thought of the demonic god after spending years on the forum and understanding a lot of game content. It seemed that the demonic god used this kind of power. As for how to use it for training, Mo Xiaoxin knew nothing about it. Mo Xiaoxin suddenly felt that it was troublesome. This was because he could not decompose such a top-notch element as it was too difficult. However, Mo Xiaoxin did not give up. He stood up and went to the decomposer section again. He found an elemental decomposition table and began to check the decomposition frequency of the negative element. Just as Mo Xiaoxin thought, the difficulty of decomposing top-notch elements was much higher than that of low-level elements. This was because decomposing this type of element was not just a single frequency. As it was decomposed, it needed to change its frequency, and every change had to match the changing negative element. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin felt a headache coming on. This was because the negative element was an important part of the spirit core and took up more than half of it. If he only decomposed the other elements and sold them while discarding the negative element, he might not only not make money but also lose money. He would be hung up and beaten by his own mother. Mo Xiaoxin trembled. What was more terrifying was that if he could not complete the task, his career might end because he was going to be sold. On one hand was the task given by his own mother, and on the other hand was a difficult task. Although he was ranked 23rd in the decomposer trial, Mo Xiaoxin was still self-aware and knew that he couldn't handle the extraction of such elements. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin felt wronged and pitiful. "It's too hard for me." At this moment, he suddenly remembered the elementary school student who was hanging on the wall. If it was him, there would be no problem. Mo Xiaoxin was completely convinced by Kong Yi, who had obtained the first place in the alchemy competition. Back then, he had thought that if a primary school student like Kong Yi were to participate in the disintegrator trial, the first place would be secured. Who would have thought that the wallpaper student would actually run to participate in the alchemist trial, and he was hundreds of times ahead of the person in second place, firmly occupying the top spot. After 3 years of fighting, Mo Xiaoxin felt that this elementary school student named Kong Yi was the scariest and had the greatest potential among all the cheats he had ever seen. It was as if he really had a cheat. He seemed to be invincible in all fields. He had comprehended a top-notch cultivation technique that had never appeared in the entire server before, and he knew the content of decomposition like the back of his hand. After that, he had taken first place in the alchemist trial. Life with cheats started from primary school. From Mo Xiaoxin's point of view, there seemed to be nothing that could stop the rise of this primary school student other than preventing him from becoming addicted. Mo Xiaoxin was also looking forward to the amazing performance this primary school student would bring in the future. He believed that with a primary school student like Kong Yi, the future cross-server battles would be very exciting. The original server would also continue to firmly occupy the #1 position in the entire server, becoming the father of all servers. However, from that day onwards, this primary school student actually did not come online again. This made Mo Xiaoxin very confused. At this moment, he opened his friend list. It was still the same. Although he had added Kong Yi as a friend, his name was grayed out. Mo Xiaoxin could not help but sigh. It seemed that it was impossible to ask for external help. However, it was impossible for him to give up just like that. Mo Xiaoxin immediately turned his head and looked at the rows of bookshelves in front of him. Find a way to extract negative elements. With so many books, he did not believe that there was no useful way. After some hesitation, Mo Xiaoxin decided to work hard. If there was no way, then he would find a way. After that, he was completely immersed in the sea of books. He flipped through the corresponding books one by one, understanding everything related to negative elements as well as how to use them. The most important thing was the method of extraction. During his days in the library, when Mo Xiaoxin was thirsty or hungry, he would directly buy items from the auction house. He did not waste a single second of his time. During this time, his biological mother, Mo Lanlan, sent him a voice message, asking if he had settled it. Mo Xiaoxin immediately said that there was no problem, but his heart was filled with bitterness. She was his biological mother after all. Resistance was unfilial, and not resistance meant getting beaten up. Although his biological mother was beautiful and moving, when she beat someone up, it was really painful. Mo Xiaoxin had the most right to speak about this and had experienced it many times. Therefore, in order to not get beaten up, Mo Xiaoxin racked his brains and took the initiative to learn all kinds of unpopular knowledge. As he immersed himself in learning, Mo Xiaoxin really did find a method to extract negative emotions. This was a technique called negative body. What attracted Mo Xiaoxin was that this technique recorded a method to extract negative emotions. As long as he had this, he would be able to extract the negative elements contained in any object. He did not need to follow the frequency of decomposition like a decomposer, which was very troublesome. Mo Xiaoxin, who had found a method, was a little excited. As long as he had this, it would be extremely easy for him to extract negative elements. Thus, Mo Xiaoxin began to carefully read this technique. But soon Mo Xiaoxin frowned. Although this cultivation method could use negative elements to cultivate, this cultivation method had a huge flaw. After cultivating this cultivation method, all other elements would not be able to be used. For example, Mo Xiaoxin was originally a sorcerer and could control all kinds of elements to cast spells in battle. However, after cultivating this technique, he could only choose to control a single negative element. This was because the negative elements would repel other elements. Cultivating this technique was to create a body of pure negative energy. However, when he flipped to the last page of the technique, the remark on it made Mo Xiaoxin's eyes widen. Divine technique remark. Only taught to the fated. Although negative elements are not rare elements, the amount needed to cultivate them is extremely large. Relying on other treasures and materials to extract negative elements to cultivate is extremely troublesome and costly. However, there is another method to collect negative elements that is extremely feasible. As long as you have the ability, you can obtain a large amount of negative elements. Method: attack people, attack people, attack people. Find a large group. As long as you can attack them, there will be an endless supply of negative elements for you to use. As long as you don't anger them to death, the negative elements will be endless. Reading this, for some reason, Mo Xiaoxin suddenly felt that this technique seemed to be quite pleasing to the eye. As for the reason, it was in the remark at the end. At this moment, he thought of his career of attacking people in the forum for 3 years. This period of time was truly filled with bloodshed. Many heroes were cried by him on the forum. Although they gritted their teeth because of this, they could not do anything to him. Thinking about it now, Mo Xiaoxin suddenly felt a little proud. However, what made Mo Xiaoxin frown was that he was attacking people on the forum and not in the game. If he were to really attack people in the game, no matter how many lives he had, it would not be enough. It would be impossible for him to leave the safe zone. Moreover, among the 5 major servers, none of them were Garden of Eden that he could survive in. This was because he did not miss a single one of the forums of the 5 servers and attacked all of them. It could be said that his enemies were all over the entire battle. Although it was satisfying, the consequences were also very serious. If he were to cultivate this technique and attack people in the game to become stronger, he would definitely be tired of living and would want to quit the game. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin sighed. Although he felt that this technique was very suitable for him, the risks were too great and he could not cultivate it. As a hidden expert at attacking people, he would never take the risk of attacking people in the game. This was one of the reasons why he was able to live safely until now. He stuck to his principles. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin prepared to return the book and continue to find other ways to extract negative elements. After clicking on the return book in the function panel, Mo Xiaoxin could not help but sigh. It would be great if the forum was connected to the game. That way, he might be able to become a small wall cheat by relying on this technique. When this thought appeared in his mind, Mo Xiaoxin was suddenly stunned. The forum was connected to the game? It seemed like the forum was connected to the game. For example, soul coins were the currency of the forum and could be used to tip people in the forum. Another example was the live broadcast, which was seamlessly connected to the game. There was no delay or lag when watching the live broadcast, and the forum could be opened in the game. When this thought appeared, Mo Xiaoxin could not help but become excited. After all, there were infinite possibilities in the battle. This was also the consensus of all players, and Mo Xiaoxin thought so too. Therefore, if he attacked people in the forum, he could also extract negative elements. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin could not stay calm. He immediately took down the book that he had already returned, feeling slightly excited in his heart. This was extremely risky. There was no account deletion function in the battle. In other words, if he cultivated this negative physique but could not extract negative elements from attacking people in the forum, then his account would be useless. What could a sorcerer who could not control the elements to cast spells do? Could he wield a staff and fight in close combat? Although insulting others was not the only way to cultivate the negative physique, in Mo Xiaoxin's opinion, this was the only way to choose. After all, he was not a tycoon like Guyu. It was unrealistic to rely on buying materials that contained negative elements to cultivate. Therefore, the only way was to attack people. There was no cost, and it was also his hobby. It was a perfect match for him. However, the risk was great. Before he cultivated, he did not know if the forum was as perfectly connected to the game as he thought. If he did not succeed, then he would really be like what his mother said. living a mediocre life. In the future, he could only be a full-time fishing player. At most, his subclass would be a melee sorcerer. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin was a little hesitant. Originally, he only wanted to find a way to extract negative elements, but he did not expect to find a way that might lead to the wall cheat. Risk? Opportunity? However, if he did not try, how would he know the result? Looking at the book in his hand, Mo Xiaoxin felt as if there were two paths shrouded in fog in front of him. Chapter 597. These were two completely different paths, but there was no room for regret after making the choice. This undoubtedly made Mo Xiaoxin very conflicted. Holding the book, Mo Xiaoxin leaned against the bookshelf and slowly sat on the ground, deep in thought. He had to admit that he liked this martial art from the bottom of his heart. The method of absorbing negative elements to grow was practically tailor-made for him. However, the biggest problem now was that if he could not absorb negative elements from the forum after practicing this martial art, then this martial art would be useless. He could only be a melee sorcerer in the future. And Mo Xiaoxin smiled awkwardly as he recalled the scene of him waving his staff around on the battlefield and smashing it randomly. However, he was not willing to give up just like that. It had been 3 whole years. Like other players, he had been searching for opportunities to rise. Now that the opportunity was right in front of him, how could he give it up so easily? Holding the book, Mo Xiaoxin felt like he was going bald from worry. As a very rational contrarian, he would never act rashly when faced with a difficult problem. He had to analyze the pros and cons before making a decision. It was the same when he criticized others on the forum. He was never a grumpy keyboard warrior who scolded without reason. Instead, he would find reasons and reasons, stand in front of the truth, and argue with the other party. Time passed bit by bit. A batch of players in the library left, and a new batch came in. Mo Xiaoxin was still analyzing the pros and cons. In the end, it was a voice call from his mother that made Mo Xiaoxin make up his mind. In the voice call, Mo Lanlan said that he was only 3,000 soul coins away from buying the level 150 epic quality weapon, Destruction. She asked him to hurry up and make money, or else she would kill him in the name of justice. Under his mother's suppression, Mo Xiaoxin gritted his teeth and made a decision. I'll King learn it. After that, Mo Xiaoxin began to practice according to the method described in the book. The cultivation method in the book was not like meditation like in the TV series, but fantasy. He imagined a black mountain in his mind, using the picture in the book as a reference, and continued to sculpt the imaginary picture until the trees and flowers on the mountain became vivid. Although it looked easy, it was definitely a mental task. However, what surprised Mo Xiaoxin was that he could not get the black mountain out of his mind even though he had only imagined it in his mind. As long as he closed his eyes, this black mountain would appear in his mind. This was completely different from what was described in the books, where it was extremely difficult to cross the threshold, and the moment one's train of thought broke, the black mountain in one's mind would collapse. Am I a martial arts prodigy? Mo Xiaoxin couldn't help but wonder. However, time was of the essence. His biological mother was about to execute him in the name of justice with a machete. Mo Xiaoxin immediately immersed himself in his fantasy and began to meticulously sculpt the mountain. However, the subsequent cultivation process was so smooth that Mo Xiaoxin found it unbelievable. In just 2 hours, he had completely visualized the Black Mountain. According to the book, although this cultivation technique wasn't a top-notch cultivation technique, it was extremely difficult to cultivate. It was related to one's personality, physique, and other factors. It was a cultivation technique that consumed a lot of resources and was extremely difficult to cultivate. It was a strenuous and not necessarily rewarding cultivation technique. Therefore, Mo Xiaoxin felt that it was too King amazing to be able to get started in just 2 hours. At this moment, a notification popped up. Game notification. Congratulations, you have successfully cultivated the growth type skill. Negative body. Game Notification 2. Negative Body is a growth-type skill. It has an extremely high upper limit and an extremely low lower limit. It is an ability that is very difficult to master. Player, please find your own way to grow. Seeing the game notification, Mo Xiaoxin closed his eyes subconsciously. Suddenly, the small black mountain appeared in his mind again. This mountain had a name in the book, Negative Heart Core. Other than the fact that he had to rely on fantasy to get started, the subsequent growth of this small mountain had to be irrigated with negative elements. There was no other way. With a thought from Mo Xiaoxin, the mountain in his mind trembled slightly. The flowers, plants, and trees on it swayed along with it. Everything seemed lifelike. When he opened his eyes again, Mo Xiaoxin took out his staff from his channel and began to condense a water ball in his palm with a nervous heart. Just as he thought, the black mountain in his mind automatically appeared the moment the water element was summoned. It shook and dispersed the free water element in the air, making it impossible for him to condense it. Mo Xiaoxin then tried using fire element, earth element, and other spells. However, whenever a spell fluctuation appeared, it would be dispersed by the black mountain in his mind. Mo Xiaoxin originally wanted to continue trying. At that moment, the game notification appeared. Game warning. It is forbidden to use spells in the safe zone. If you violate the rules again, a certain amount of soul coins will be deducted as punishment. Seeing the game notification, Mo Xiaoxin immediately gave up on trying. He also understood that it was useless to try anymore. It could be said that the current him had broken away from the scope of an elemental mage and was one step closer to being a melee mage. Fortunately, there was still room for redemption. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin opened the forum skillfully. With a nervous heart, he was ready to flame. Mo Xiaoxin was so familiar with this that it had become an instinct. Looking at the posts that were constantly refreshed in the forum, he even knew how many points in the original poster's words were worth debating just by looking at the title. Although he was very nervous, Mo Xiaoxin instantly got into the zone when he clicked on the post. After a virtual keyboard was projected, he began to type with a pitter-patter sound. The forum had a very high-tech function, which was that the thoughts in one's mind could be directly converted into words without the need to type on the keyboard. However, in Mo Xiaoxin's opinion, when it came to debating someone, the pitter-patter sound of typing on the keyboard was the best feeling. Soon, Mo Xiaoxin forgot his current purpose and was completely immersed in the pleasure of turning into a debater. From the main forum to the subsections, and then to the forums of other servers, he could not stop after activating 5 times in a second. His keen insight allowed him to quickly find points and then attack the original poster on a spiritual level. After a series of flashy actions, his bounty in the bounty section increased again. 3 hours later, Mo Xiaoxin reluctantly closed the forum. To him, the forum felt like returning home. Everyone there was talented, and their words were pleasant to listen to. He loved to see them gnash their teeth in hatred, but could not do anything about it. After stretching, Mo Xiaoxin, who was feeling very comfortable, suddenly froze. He suddenly remembered the problem with the negative body technique. Because he was too engrossed, he completely forgot about the important matter. With an incomparably nervous heart, he clicked on the attribute panel. Mo Xiaoxin player. Profession: Elementalist First Class. Ability details: Elemental Heart recovers a certain amount of spiritual energy value every second blocked. Elemental Affinity: Elemental casting speed is reduced by 20% blocked. Negative Body Growth Type Technique. Technique details: After successfully cultivating the negative body, all elemental abilities except for negative elements will be blocked. Technique progress: First Class 0/2000 Basic Technique Abilities: Elemental Isolation, Negative Control, Nothingness, Elemental Isolation, Special Passive. Ability details: All elemental spells will be ineffective against you. Negative Control active. Ability details: manipulate negative elements and inject them into the opponent's body, causing the opponent to have negative emotions, causing a spiritual impact, causing the opponent to have negative emotions. The amount of damage depends on the technique's cultivation level. Technique creator remarks, "Let the opponent die in pain. Ha ha ha." Nothingness. Ability details: turn the body into negative elements. In this state, the body will have no form. Physical and elemental spells will be ineffective against you. Curse-type spell damage will be halved. Movement speed will be increased by 300%. Lasts for 5 minutes. Lengthens as the technique grows. Cooldown time: 20 minutes. Looking at his analysis panel, Mo Xiaoxin was stunned on the spot. Although the ability was indeed very strong, it was simply a self-defense expert, immune to all kinds of escape skills. Even the only active attack skill was the ability to make the opponent feel autistic and then wait for an opportunity to escape. At least that was how Mo Xiaoxin saw it. It could be said that Mo Xiaoxin liked the supplementary ability of this technique very much. However, the biggest problem was that he had been arguing on the forum for 3 hours, but the cultivation progress was still 0. There was no progress at all. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin panicked. He felt that he was one step closer to the road of no return as a melee mage. The forum and the game were not interconnected. Before, he could use the ability of the negative body to make other players feel autistic. Mo Xiaoxin felt that he was going to be autistic first, because, in his opinion, the forum was the only place he could collect negative emotions. "I'm done for." Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin, who was unwilling to give up, took out a spirit core from the channel and began to extract the negative elements inside it. He wanted to see how the cultivation progress would be if he relied on absorbing the negative elements in the treasure. Suddenly, the negative elements in the spirit core turned into a cloud of mist and was extracted. The gray color inside the spirit core also disappeared, turning into an almost transparent crystal. Compared to a decomposer, the ability of the negative body technique saved Mo Xiaoxin a lot of steps when he extracted the negative elements. Then, under Mo Xiaoxin's control, the negative elements were absorbed into his body. Then, he quickly opened his personal panel. Negative body. Technique progress. Level 1, 1.6/2000. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin felt that he was one step closer to becoming a melee mage. Although it was only a first-tier Spectre soul nucleus, it could still be sold for around 20 soul coins. In other words, if he wanted to complete the level 1 cultivation, he would have to spend at least 25,000 soul coins. However, this was only the first stage. The subsequent cultivation costs would definitely increase exponentially. Autistic. Mo Xiaoxin felt that this kind of cultivation method was no longer a question of difficulty. It was a complete waste of money. What's the point of cultivating? I've changed to melee mage. Mo Xiaoxin thought to himself in despair. Depressed, Mo Xiaoxin hugged the technique book and sat on the ground with his back against the bookshelf. His body was trembling, slightly. For this account, he had worked hard for 3 years. During this period, he had fished to save money, gathered equipment, and gathered materials for a profession advancement. He had walked step by step, although he did not keep up with the first echelon of players and advance to a 5 elements warlock. He had relied on hard work to advance to the new mage profession, elemental warlock. At this moment, it seemed that all his efforts were in vain. The more Mo Xiaoxin thought about it, the sadder he became. He opened the forum again. Every time he was sad, he wanted to transfer his negative emotions to other forum players. It was time to fight. However, after opening the forum, a line of words on the upper right corner of his personal information suddenly caught his attention. Crayon Shinchan forum account. Account level. Veteran 300-245/802-405 points. Number of posts 9,825. Number of replies 72405. Account balance. Soul coins 378. Negative elements special 443. 326 at this moment, his expression gradually became interesting. Players often said that there were countless Easter eggs, countless surprises, and infinite possibilities in a battle. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin felt that this sentence was really right. Sure enough, the forum was connected to the game. After practicing this technique, it was not that he could not extract negative elements from the forum. Instead, he needed a conversion process. Looking at the withdraw button under his account balance, he could not help but tear up. It seemed like he was going to rise. Chapter 598. The players who frequented the forum recently discovered that the frequency of Crayon Shinchan's appearance seemed to be increasing, although he had always been a long-time user of the forum. Compared to before, the frequency of his recent appearance had become more frequent. During this period, there were all kinds of fancy bickering, and behind the funny expressions were the tears of many Opi. Converging into a river, they couldn't argue with him, nor could they hit him. So what if the players gritted their teeth? According to Crayon Shinchan's words, "Are you angry? If you're angry, jump out of the game and beat me to death," laughing emoji. Many players were so angry that they wanted to smash their keyboards with this flawless, stubborn, and untraceable person. However, they couldn't do anything to him. In fact, Mo Xiaoxin's existence was of great help to the development of the forum. It could be said that he had promoted the development of many sections. For example, the guides posted by many professional players. Mo Xiaoxin could always rely on his strong understanding of the game to find faults in the detailed teaching content. This made the professional players more cautious when writing guides, afraid that they would be criticized by Mo Xiaoxin, and at the same time lose face in front of the fans. Therefore, it could be said that his existence increased the quality of the strategy guides on the forum. This was imperceptibly helpful to many players who liked to read strategy guides. However, these advantages couldn't cover up Crayon Shinchan's bad deeds. Every veteran player on the forum could casually give countless examples of Crayon Shinchan's bad deeds. This was like when the non-server forum had just been opened. At that time, the non-server forum had just been opened, and the entire non-server player group was beaten badly by the Beast Clan. They died every day, and the gaming experience was extremely poor. Many players were almost in a state of autism. The existence of Crayon Shinchan made the non-server players feel even more depressed. Crayon Shinchan would never let go of rubbing salt in the wound. Although what he said was indeed very reasonable and true, it was really difficult to accept the truth at that time. For example, the 1,000 Ways to Die for non-server players, written by Crayon Shinchan, was still hanging on the non-server forum to this day. When many new players saw it, they would understand the dark times in the early days of the non-server and the painful experience of the old players. This also became a black mark in the history of the African conquest that could not be erased. Therefore, the players chose to forget about Crayon Shinchan, who was a cancer in the forum, and remembered his viciousness. Behind the huge bounty was the common hatred of the players of the 5 great servers against a common enemy. It was the figures of the players who had been bullied by Mo Xiaoxin to the point of tears. His position as the most influential person on the forum had never been shaken in the past 3 years. Although there were players who wanted to copy Crayon Shinchan's legend, they followed his example and went around challenging people, trying to raise their own fame. However, no one had ever succeeded. The reason why Crayon Shinchan was called the god of arguments was that he liked to argue. However, when he argued, he was clear and pointed to the key points. This was something that others couldn't learn. Those imitators would only be called trolls, not trolls, and definitely not trolls. The difference was that the troll would scold the OP for no reason at all. What he did was to make his presence known. On the other hand, Crayon Shinchan directly poked at the OP's sore spot, found a reason that he could not refute, and used the truth to destroy the OP's spirit. Let me tell you one thing. What you're proud of, what you use to show off, is nothing. This was also one of the reasons why many players hated Mo Xiaoxin. He was right, and there was no way to refute it. However, This group of players was very unhappy when they were criticized. Therefore, it was obvious who was stronger and weaker between the imitators and Crayon Shin-chan. There were many trolls in battle, but there was only one god of arguments. Even Crayon Shin-chan's popularity among the new players was extremely high. Many new players liked to enter the battle forum to learn about the game and learn about it like curious babies. Therefore, the first battle celebrity that they got to know was usually not a certain troll, but Crayon Shin-chan, the god of arguments whose true identity was a mystery. Therefore, Mo Xiaoxin had become particularly active recently, which gave many players a headache. They always felt that if they said something wrong in a certain post, they would be humiliated by the god of arguments. However, just as countless players were having a headache, Mo Xiaoxin also encountered his own problem. After cultivating the negative physique recently, he thought that his future would be bright. He had reached the second level of the technique in just a few days by extracting once a day. He was not far from the third level, and his growth was rapid. This made Mo Xiaoxin feel that if he continued like this, he might become a member of the group of trolls. However, at this time the after effects came. Although he had been trolling diligently, the consequence was that the bounty in the bounty section had also increased. Compared to before, the increase curve had risen sharply. This was not a trivial matter for him. Every time he got closer to the 10 million bounty, Mo Xiaoxin felt that his mother's machete, hanging over his head, was also one step closer to his neck. The after effects of being active had both advantages and disadvantages. Based on the previous increase, there was still a period of time before he would be killed by his mother in the name of justice. However, judging from the recent increase, he was not far from death. Moreover, the more he jumped around in the forum, the happier his mother was. After all, it was all money. Mo Lanlan vividly displayed the saying, raising a child to protect oneself in old age. It was so real that it was cruel. This was Mo Xiaoxin's current situation. Arguing with others in the forum would not be far from death. However, if he did not argue, he would not be able to cultivate the technique. How to choose was a big problem that gave Mo Xiaoxin a headache. He was very clear that with his mother's personality, it was really possible that she would kill him with a knife and not feel the slightest bit of guilt. As the person who understood his mother the most, Mo Xiaoxin was very clear. His mother's personality had always been carefree. She never played games, and she did not use the so-called white lies that other parents said. What she said was the truth from the bottom of her heart. Although he was her son, in his mother's eyes he might not be as useful as a set of top-grade epic equipment. Moreover, according to his mother, every time she saw his bounty increase, she felt as if she saw a piglet in a pen getting fatter. As long as it got fatter, she could slaughter it and sell it for money. It was so real that it made her heart ache. His mother, who never hid her true heart, was Mo Xiaoxin's biggest nemesis. She was a lingering shadow. Recently, Mo Xiaoxin discovered a problem in his research on the negative body technique. That was, he could only open the forum in the game to argue with others in order to increase the balance of the negative elements in the forum. If he opened the forum in the computer after he went offline, not only would he not gain any negative elements by arguing with others, even the balance of the negative elements would be hidden. In other words, if he wanted to cultivate this technique, he could only open the forum in the game to argue with others. However, doing so in reality was completely useless, as it would not increase the balance of the negative elements at all. Mo Xiaoxin only thought that it was the game design and did not think much of it. Anyway, since he had a gaming chamber, he basically did not need to use the computer anymore. He did not feel that there was any problem. However, he was prepared to stop using the forum for a while. Yesterday, his mother happily told him to keep up the good work. At that moment, Mo Xiaoxin felt the strong malice from his mother. Therefore, if he continued to argue with her, his battle career might end prematurely. For Lu Wu, who often surfed the forum, what happened to Mo Xiaoxin could not be hidden from him. He did not know whether to laugh or cry at Mo Xiaoxin's thoughts at that time. It was one thing for him to hide behind the scenes and harvest leaks, But Mo Xiaoxin actually came up with his own way of harvesting leeks. Lu Wu was dumbfounded. Mo Xiaoxin was now a forum farmer, relying on the huge number of forum players to continuously extract negative elements for his own growth. A player's potential was limitless, and there were always tricks up their sleeves. However, Mo Xiaoxin's tricks still hurt him. At this moment, Lu Wu really felt that this kid was a genius. He actually thought of an alternative way of harvesting leeks, and he even did it in the forum. He could not help but be impressed, developing his hobby into something that he relied on for his own growth. It was a godlike operation. The additional negative balance in Mo Xiaoxin's personal information in the forum was added by Lu Wu. This was because he thought that the idea was really good, and it did not affect his soul coin income, nor did it affect the soul coin production of other players. To Lu Wu, the strength of a player was only good, there was no harm. More importantly, he knew that Mo Xiaoxin was a player who loved to fight. In the past 3 years, he had a deep impression of this player. This was because whenever he opened a random post in the forum, he would always see Crayon Shinchan's sarcastic replies. It was simply everywhere. However, at that time, Lu Wu only thought it was fun and did not take it seriously. After all, having the ability to scold people was not a wall-level talent, and it could not bring any growth effect to the Calamity Army. At that time, Lu Wu was still thinking that it would be great if this player's growth in the game could be as strong as his ability to scold people. He did not expect that today, 3 years later, a random thought that he had back then would come true. This Crayon Shinchan actually came up with the godlike operation of forum farming. Lu Wu did not know whether to laugh or cry, but he had to admire him for achieving his own growth with his hobby. Lu Wu was looking forward to his next performance. Lu Wu also had a detailed understanding of the negative body technique during the period when Mo Xiaoxin was learning it. He realized that this cultivation technique was actually not that powerful. Some clues could be seen from the artifact's lack of regional announcements. Just like the artifact's analysis, the upper limit of this technique was very high, but the lower limit was also very low. It was still unknown whether he would be able to grow. Even the person who created this technique had only cultivated it to the 9th level, reaching the Ghost Emperor advanced stage. However, Lu Wu felt that this technique was very suitable for Mo Xiaoxin, and he might be able to create a miracle. There was such a large group of players in the forum, and Mo Xiaoxin's reserve of resources was much more superior than that of the creator. Coupled with his sarcastic talent, it was entirely possible for him to surpass the creator of the technique and go further and longer. At this time, Mo Xiaoxin had officially entered the scope of Lu Wu's observation, and then his subsequent performance would be recorded in the wall notebook. Lu Wu was looking forward to whether he could carve out a path of his own. Chapter 599. Once again, Rabbit walked out of the Mansion of the Dead and was surrounded by countless evil players. Listen, this rabbit can speak human language, and it's even scolding us, the leading man was surprised. The players' festive time had begun. They started running around the land of Beiki, searching for the lost rabbit for Chong. Mid-Autumn Festival Event 1. Chang'e searching for the rabbit all day. Rabbit picked up the leaf it had just plucked and continued munching on it. Brother, let's be friends, shall we? Rabbit thought for a while and asked again, sincerely. Amidst the rabbit's scolding, the 3 of them sincerely apologized and took out a pile of food as compensation. Only then did the rabbit temporarily swallow its anger. Along with the Dragon Boat Festival, the Spring Festival, and the Qingming Festival, they were known as the 4 traditional festivals of Qi Dragon. Event Tip 2. Moon Rabbit is immune to all damage and control, except for the quest item. Rabbit turned around suspiciously and was shocked to find a rabbit that looked similar to him lying beside him, munching on a leaf as well. Inexplicably disappointed, the rabbit lowered its head, bent its body and flicked its ears, looking discouraged. Red Pearls on the opposite shore leads to 3 lives. Living in Qi Dragon, it was natural that he had heard many fairy tales since he was young. As the event began, white rabbits descended from the sky above the land of Bakey. Event item: rabbit net, 5 minutes cooldown, 15 meters, 20% chance of failure. Yes, that's it. Hurry up, don't let him escape. This was the reason why the players were looking forward to the event during Battle Royale. Just as it was holding the leaf and thinking about why, 3 players were quietly approaching it. Mid-Autumn Festival Event 4. Beautiful flowers and full moon, 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. According to one of the players, Battle Royale made many players remember many festivals that they usually didn't care about. It played an important role in promoting traditional festivals. Event details. After the event begins, a puzzle will be displayed on the moon every 10 minutes. Players can look up at the moon and solve the puzzle. At this moment, Rabbit was roaring and saying all kinds of filthy words that it learned from Tong Guaku. When they realized that the rabbit was a contracted beast of the players, the 3 players were extremely embarrassed. Boss, I saw a moon rabbit just now. It should have landed in this direction. Search carefully and don't let anyone get there first. After getting down from the tree, Rabbit was about to run in that direction. Realizing that the event had begun, the players all rushed out of the mansion of the dead. Noticing that the rabbit was getting closer, the moon rabbit suddenly raised its head in alarm. Then it jumped down the tree and disappeared in a flash. After all, they looked too alike. Looking at the outside world, they are all King bad people who want to bully me. That's normal. It's a moon rabbit, so it's no different from a normal rabbit. His companion replied. Mid-Autumn Festival Event 3. Koi presents 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Event tip. After the start of this event, the land of Bakey will randomly spawn moon rabbits. Each person can only complete this mission once. The Jade Soul East opened and Chang'e arrived. At this time, the leading player picked up its ear and handed it to Chang'e. Because they were afraid that the rabbit would escape, they did not analyze the rabbit's interface before catching it. Now that they received Chang'e's reply, the 3 of them were dumbfounded. So they quickly checked the rabbit's interface. It's so boring. I'll just eat some leaves. At this moment, the congestion appeared again. The Mid-Autumn Festival event, Moon Dream of Autumn, has officially started. Event 1, Chang'e searching for the rabbit, has officially started. The event item, Rabbit Catching Net, will now spawn moon rabbits randomly in the land of Bakey. Players, please catch them and hand them over to Chang'e. Since it was a legal holiday, many players were urging the damned officials to release the event early in the morning, saying that it was time to throw coins. At this moment, the rabbit was stunned. Let's go! I didn't expect to catch a moon rabbit at the beginning of the event. This is a good sign. Maybe we're going to get rich overnight from this Mid-Autumn Festival event. At this moment, the rabbit suspected that this moon rabbit might be of the same breed as itself. It might even be a mystical rabbit with the bloodline of the herb-tampering rabbit. When Chang'e arrived at the mansion of the dead under the moonlight, the event notification appeared in the minds of all the players. However, the smarter players had already arrived outside the city before the event officially started. They were afraid that they would be stuck at the entrance and waste a lot of time. Charming spirit of autumn water. At the same time as the game notification appeared, a voice rang in their ears. At this moment, it missed Yi Sherwin very much. It was too dangerous for a rabbit to be alone outside. That's true. Let's go and submit our quest first. We'll catch another moon rabbit later. It was used to being alone in the past, but it had not felt this way for a long time ever since it started following Yishuren. Event details. After the event starts, koi will randomly appear in all the rivers and lakes in Bakey. Players can go and fish there. Players who successfully catch a koi will receive a Mid-Autumn Festival mooncake as a gift from the koi. Use it to obtain a random item reward. Mid-Autumn Festival Event 2. Martial Arts Tournament under the moon all day. Yes, look carefully. Look at the tree in front of us. Is that the rabbit? Event notification. The Mid-Autumn Festival mooncake obtained during this event can be gifted to other players. The giver will receive 5 luck points, and the probability of getting a high-quality item in the next lucky draw will be increased by 30%. Each Mid-Autumn Festival mooncake can only be gifted once. The event started with the stunning scene of Chang'e descending to Earth, making the players feel as if they were suddenly surrounded by a festive atmosphere. It was also known as Lunar Eve, Mid-Autumn Festival, August Festival, August Festival, Moon Chasing Festival, Moon Playing Festival, Moon Worshipping Festival, Girls' Day, or Reunion Festival. It was a traditional cultural festival that was popular among many ethnic groups and countries in the Chinese culture circle. As the Chinese people spread all over the world, this day became a worldwide festival. Bodhi was not a tree that provoked the mortal world. For this day, the players were always looking forward to it. The confused rabbit lowered its head and looked at the leaf in its arms, then at the direction where the moon rabbit had left. After some thought, it decided to chase after it and ask. Suddenly, the rabbit had the urge to become sworn brothers with the moon rabbit. After all, it was its first time meeting its own kind. And Chang'e was undoubtedly one of the most impressive characters in the fairy tales. In fact, the festive atmosphere in the game was even stronger than in reality, making this day even more memorable to the players. At this moment, the flowers and trees in the city bloomed with colorful flowers. Bursts of fragrance spread throughout the city, making people feel relaxed and happy. Festive lanterns were also hung under the eaves of all the buildings, filling the air with a festive atmosphere. At this moment, the players were dumbfounded. What the F***CK? The dress was swept away, and the fragrance was scattered. Rules of the event. The first 10 million players to answer each riddle correctly will receive a small, random gift. During this time, the rabbit was repeatedly captured by Chang'e in the central plaza of the Mansion of the Dead and handed over to the rabbit as the Moon Rabbit. At this moment, 3 capture nets appeared. Then, 3 figures leaped out from the bushes and pounced on the rabbit like hungry wolves. For a moment, the rabbit was scared silly. It thought that it was a good start, but it accidentally injured its allies. Because Yi Sherwen was dragged away by his mother to visit relatives, he didn't come online today, so the rabbit could only celebrate this festival by itself. If it didn't know that it had no siblings, it would have suspected that these were its long-lost compatriots. At this moment, at the border between the barren lands and the cliffs of desperation, a rabbit was lying on a tree and eating leaves. When they opened the bag, the rabbit was still angrily cursing. The event channel was instantly flooded with players' praises. Event details. After this event begins, an event NPC named Chang'e will appear in the Mansion of the Dead. Players can accept quests from this NPC and help her find the lost moon rabbit. After finding and capturing her, players can return to the Mansion of the Dead and receive a generous reward. At this moment, the players were very excited to witness the descent of Chang'e during the battle. Some praised the dog officials for their efforts in organizing the event, while some lamented the burning budget of the dog officials. However, when Chang'e saw the rabbit, she was also very surprised. Her beautiful eyes wandered, and her red lips opened slightly as she shook her head. After doing this for dozens of times, the rabbit almost shut himself up. Her voice was smooth and pleasant, like a pot of wine, intoxicating the mind. However, the rabbit's tragedy was not over yet. Just as it thought, it looked too much like the moon rabbit. At this moment, the rabbit almost doubted its life. Descendant of Bakey, you've caught the wrong person. This is not my moon rabbit. Looking up at the bright moon, it suddenly felt a little lonely. Therefore, they were always looking forward to the festival. Now that it was here, they were ready to make a fortune from the dog officials. The rabbit was confused. Event notification. The cross-server opponents matched for this event will have their attributes adjusted. The aloofness of the moon rabbit baffled the rabbit. Chatting along the way, the 3 of them returned to the Mansion of the Dead happily and arrived at the central square where Chang'e was. Lu Wu did not disappoint the players. Early in the morning, he announced the Mid-Autumn Festival event in the game and forum. However, the moon rabbit ignored the rabbit and continued to nibble on the leaves with a satisfied look on her face. Following the start of the event, the entire mansion of the dead underwent a huge change. Event details. After the start of this event, every player will be qualified to participate in the server's individual competition match 3 times. During this event, every victory will be rewarded with a Mid-Autumn Fortune Bag, randomly selected prize. Those who win 3 matches in a row will be rewarded with a Mid-Autumn Gift Bag. The surrounding sky gradually darkened. Under the astonished gazes of the players, a golden full moon rose slowly. The gentle moonlight shone down, converging into a sparkling path that led straight to the center of the mansion of the dead. The biggest difference between this game and other games was that every event in the battle was exceptionally meticulous, giving the players a strong festive atmosphere. If one did not open the analysis menu, they would not be able to tell the difference at all. Official message. People say that the moon is beautiful in the autumn. Would you like to share it with us? The players of the battle were already used to having events during every festival. At this moment, a graceful figure emerged from the moon, stepping on the bridge formed by the moonlight and slowly descending to the mortal world. It was indeed the case. A few days before the arrival of every festival, the forum would discuss the upcoming festival and even speculate what kind of event the damned officials would come up with. Having escaped from the evil claws of the 3-man team, it meant that the danger had been resolved. Mid-Autumn Festival Theme, Moon Dream of Autumn. August 15th, the Mid-Autumn Festival. Just like that, the rabbit was caught in a daze, and before he could even struggle, he was thrown into a bag. You like to eat leaves too. Are you a high-level rabbit too? After some thought, Rabbit took 2 steps forward and tried to greet the person. Her sleeves broke the moon in the frost. Descendants of Bakey, can you find the moon rabbit for me? However, as he chewed on the leaves, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. There was a rustling sound next to him that was exactly the same as when he was chewing on the leaves. The half-song was like a floating shadow. Chang'e walked out from the moon. Her eyes were as clear as water, and her clothes were light and gauzy. Her entire body was filled with the interpretation of beauty. She looked even more like an otherworldly fairy. Her ribbons floated in the air, surrounded by a fairy aura. Chapter 600. The event had officially begun, and the players in the land of Bakey were in a frenzy. During this period, there were groups of players everywhere trying to catch the moon rabbit. The rabbit was so scared that it hid in the sewers of the mansion of the dead, not daring to come out again. To it, the outside world was too scary. Players nowadays were like gorillas that would transform into gorillas on a full moon night. Every full moon night, their brains would short-circuit and they would wreak havoc. The trembling rabbit hugged itself, feeling wronged and afraid. It could only hide in the sewers and wait for the cute Yi Sherwan to rescue it. It was too hard to be a rabbit. 2 hours after the Mid-Autumn Festival event began, some players had already caught the moon rabbit required for the event and received their rewards. Since the Chang'e rabbit hunting event could only be completed once per player, most of the players had no intention of searching for the moon rabbit. Hence, they set their sights on the second event, the Moonlight Tournament, which was also open to the public. Most of the players had never experienced an individual tournament that was synchronized across the entire server, so they were undoubtedly curious. Moreover, the attributes of the all-server tournament would be balanced. As long as one's skills were up to par, there was a high chance that they would be rewarded. Hence, these players opened the event menu and began to randomly match opponents across the server, looking forward to their performance. During this period, as more and more players caught the moon rabbit and completed the Chang'e rabbit hunting quest, the Moonlight Tournament gradually became more popular. Matches across the entire server began, and the various servers began to compete fiercely for the victory rankings. Meanwhile, in the mansion of the dead, Yuan Fong was eating a player's homemade mooncake as he happily clicked the match button for the Moonlight Tournament. Others took the tournament seriously, But Yuan Fong did not care whether he took it seriously or not. Whether he could win or not depended on his opponent. The more competitive his opponent was, the higher his chances of winning. If his opponent had no intention of defeating him, the match would basically end in a draw. Hence, he wanted to be passive in the individual tournament because he did not have the ability to take the initiative even if he wanted to. As a player who had almost 1,000 draws and only one win, Yuan Fong felt that every time he participated in a tournament, it was like going through the motions and chatting with his opponent for half an hour. Due to the generous rewards for winning the tournament, Yuan Fong could not wait any longer and chose to participate. Although he didn't have much hope of winning, but he definitely wouldn't lose. If nothing unexpected happened, it would still be a draw. As he waited, a game notification appeared. Game notification. Successfully matched with a Beiki player, Nia Fong. Battle record. 24 consecutive defeats, 0 wins. Seeing that they were about to enter the individual arena, Yuan Fong hurriedly stuffed the mooncake in his hand into his mouth and prepared himself. As the countdown continued, the surroundings gradually blurred. When it became clear again, Yuan Fong found himself at the top of a mountain. The raging wind whistled past Zhang Xian's ears. Turning his head around, he saw a bottomless abyss below him. A bright moon hung above his head, and his surroundings seemed to be a training ground filled with all kinds of weapons. Yuan Fong habitually sat down and waited for the competition to officially begin. Then he would chat with his opponent about life. He wasn't too familiar with Nia Fong, because Nia Fong was always on the move with Hu He and rarely returned to the mansion of the dead. Although Yuan Fong knew that this person was a member of the group of wall cheaters, he didn't know his abilities in detail, because in Yuan Fong's opinion, none of his opponents could do anything to him. What's more, his opponent had lost 24 times in a row. His opponent should be a lifestyle player, which meant that he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, when Nia Fong realized that his opponent was Yuan Fong, he was also stunned. Initially, he was a little nervous. In terms of combat skills, he was indeed terrible. Coupled with the limitations of the arena, his winning rate was terrifyingly low. To be precise, he hadn't won even once. This was because he needed a lot of time to refine medicine at the beginning of the competition. However, no one would give him such time. When facing him, all his opponents would rush up to him and beat him out of the arena. Therefore, after losing 24 times in a row, Nia Fong gave up on his path to winning in the individual arena. This was because he knew that he wasn't suited for a head-on battle. However, there were rewards for this event. Naturally, Nia Fong wasn't willing to give up just like that, so he decided to try again. However, he didn't expect that his first opponent would be the extremely unconventional group of wall cheaters, Yuan Fong. From the initial nervousness, Nia Fong had become much calmer at this moment. He was going to win for sure. Others were afraid of Yuan Fong because they couldn't break through the upper limit of Yuan Fong's defense. Moreover, they would be hurt instead. Hitting Yuan Fong was like hitting a hedgehog, and they would always be in pain. However, when it came to the upper limit of attack, if Nia Fong said that he was second, who would dare to say that they were first? The explosion at the mansion of the dead a year ago was an example. At that time, he had just become an apothecary, bomb master, and killed a ghost emperor. Now that he was familiar with it, as long as he was given time, he could blow up anything. Looking at Yuan Fong, Nia Feng's expression gradually turned ferocious, and his heart began to swell. I've finally met an opponent that I can restrain. It seems like I'm going to win for once. As the wall disappeared, the game notification of the start of the competition appeared. At this time, Yuan Fong sat on the ground casually and waved at Nia Fong. Want to sit down and have a chat? No, just wait for your death. Saying that, Nia Fong took out a medicine refining furnace and began to operate it. Seeing this scene, Yuan Fong was stunned. As he didn't go on the forum much and was a player who joined later, he didn't know about Nia Feng's past deeds. Therefore, he was a little confused when he saw Nia Fong refining medicine. Almsgiver, what are you doing? Yuan Fong couldn't help but ask curiously. Give me 20 minutes, and then I'll kill you, Niafeng said without hesitation. From Niafeng's point of view, so what if he exposed his thoughts? Could Yuan Fong do anything to him? That -1 damage wasn't a threat at all. Just calmly refine medicine and be done with it. Poison? If it's poison, then my current damage reflection can also hurt you. I advise you to give up. A draw is the best result. Yuan Fong couldn't help but advise. No, you'll know later. Be quiet. Saying that, Niafeng ignored Yuan Fong and continued to refine the special nuclear bomb. It was rare for him to win. At this moment, Niafeng was inexplicably excited. He had been looking forward to this day for too long. Curious, Yuan Fong walked to Niafeng's side and began to watch him refine medicine. As time passed, the medicine furnace began to tremble unstably. At this time, players began to enter the spectator area one after another to watch the competition. Regarding the battle between the hackers, many players came with the mentality of learning or watching the excitement. However, when they saw the two competitors standing together and staring at the medicine furnace with a serious expression, the spectators couldn't help but cover their faces. Although everyone was a member of Beiki, can't they compete properly? They're already starting to fake it. I'm going to report this to the dog officials. However, when they saw that Yuan Fong's opponent was Niafeng, their expressions changed. The explosion at the Mansion of the Dead was a shadow in the hearts of many players. Now that they saw Niafeng refining medicine, they knew that this competition would not be simple. Looking at Yuan Fong, who was still watching innocently, the spectators couldn't help but cover their faces again. They felt that this Baldy's first failure was coming. Although the casting time of the Bomberman was extremely long, its power was unimaginably great. Back then, the Bomberman had already killed a Ghost Emperor-level powerhouse before everyone had even passed the Ghost Commander trial. Who could withstand such damage? Although the spectators knew that Yuan Fong's defense was impenetrable, he was simply an invincible meat shield with thorns all over his body. However, as the saying went, everything had its vanquisher. To other players, Niafeng might be a weak player who would only give him free points. However, to Yuan Fong, he was definitely a powerful existence that could subdue him. What a naive little monk. He didn't even know that he was about to die and was watching so seriously. TSK. Under the pitying gazes of the players, Yuan Fong was still chattering away with Niafeng. Niafeng, on the other hand, ignored him impatiently and continued to craft his special nuclear bomb. Time passed by bit. Soon, 20 minutes had passed. During this period, neither of them suffered any damage. It looked very much like a fake competition. Almsgiver, have you finished refining the medicine? Yuan Fong asked curiously. Niafeng suddenly raised his head and looked at Yuan Fong with a solemn expression. What's the most beautiful firework you've ever seen? Yuan Fong was a little stunned. He didn't understand what Niafeng meant. I can guarantee that this will be the most stunning one you've ever seen. Come closer, Niafeng said as he pointed at the medicine furnace that was shaking nonstop. Yuan Fong heard him and took a step closer out of curiosity. Immediately, cracks appeared on the shaking medicine furnace. Through the cracks, one could see the pitch-black flames burning fiercely inside. The dazzling black light occupied Yuan Fong's vision, and he couldn't help but take a step back. After a brief moment of silence, the alchemy furnace finally exploded. Accompanied by a loud noise, a mushroom cloud rose. The entire arena was shrouded in black light, and everything inside was instantly destroyed. The huge black light lasted for a full minute before slowly dissipating. At this time, Niafeng stood inside with a smile on his face. Due to the individual arena's protection mechanism, the player's own abilities wouldn't cause damage to themselves. Therefore, no matter how close Yuan Fong was, Niafeng was unharmed. On the contrary, not a single strand of Yuan Fong's hair was left. It was completely evaporated by the domineering black light. At this moment, many players who followed Yuan Fong to watch the competition couldn't help but applaud. At the same time, they had gloating smiles on their faces. There was no such thing as true invincibility. It was just that they hadn't met their nemesis yet. Bomberman had once again proven that he was the player with the highest damage in the entire server. At this time, a dumbfounded Yuan Fong exited the arena and appeared in the Mansion of the Dead. After opening the activity panel, he was dumbfounded when he saw the personal information on the upper right corner. Individual battle arena details. Yuan Fong wins 1, draws 987, losses 1 at this moment. Yuan Fong didn't even know what happened. At the last moment, he only felt his vision being obscured by the dazzling black light, and then he was out. Thinking of this, he clicked on the combat notification bar, wanting to see the situation at that time. Combat notification. Attacked by a dark explosion. 529,313 damage received. Calculated. Damage exceeded defense limit. 514,252 actual damage received. Died. Looking at the combat notification bar, Yuan Fong was dumbfounded. 50, more than 500,000 damage. Yuan Fong was completely dumbfounded. Chapter 601. As the event progressed, the Beiki players were having a lot of fun. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the third Mid-Autumn Festival event, gift giving by Koi, began. At this moment, some of the players with dark expressions were still catching moon rabbits, while others were fiercely competing under the moon. However, most of the players were looking for rivers and lakes to start fishing. The fishing event this time had a chance of catching koi that would receive a mooncake. The players were full of anticipation. The experts in the forum also appeared at this moment, analyzing the event and coming up with several ways to maximize the benefits for the players. For example, forming a team. Since the mooncakes obtained from the gift giving by koi could be gifted to friends and receive 5 points of luck, forming a team would maximize the benefits. For example, if 3 players gifted their mooncakes to each other, each of them would receive 5 points of luck from the lucky draw, and the mooncakes in their hands would not decrease at the same time. The larger the number of people in the team, the easier the distribution would be. After all, even if one could catch a koi, it did not mean that his teammates could too. Therefore, a large number of players began to invite others to form teams to fish for koi in the event channel. However, there was also a group of players who only had a bunch of tricks in their heads. It was impossible for them to do normal activities. He had to do something. Happiness was the only thing that mattered. Not only was Lu Wu dumbfounded by the players' actions, but many other players were also dumbfounded. For example, there was an elementalist who did not use a fishing rod. Instead, he went to the lake to cast a lightning spell to electrocute the fish. Another example was a player who bought explosives made by the bomberman at the auction house and went to the river to blow up the fish. There were all kinds of tricks. This group of players did not follow normal actions at all. They only had the idea of creating trouble. Creating trouble. Creating trouble. Although this group of players had good ideas, they all ended up badly. There were only a few lakes and rivers in Beiki. This group of players stirred up trouble in the water, but it affected the players who were fishing by the shore. By doing so, the koi in the water would be frightened and would not bite the bait at all. Therefore, the indignant players would drag them to the shore and brutally smash their heads. Who asked you to create trouble again? There were actually quite a number of players who wanted to get rich overnight. They felt that fishing in peace was too slow, and that playing tricks was the key to getting rich. They might get rich overnight by doing so. Thus, the fishing party and the players who played tricks gradually became enemies and formed 2 parties. While fishing, catching rabbits, and competing, there were occasional group fights. Beiki was bustling with activity. Time flew by, and when it was around 8 o'clock at night, most of the players had returned to the Mansion of the Dead, except for a few players who had been searching for moon rabbit the entire day. The final activity, spend the full moon, also began. Game notification. The final event of the Mid-Autumn Festival has begun. Players, please pay attention to the puzzle that appears on the moon. With the appearance of the game notification, the players looked up at the golden full moon hanging in the sky, quietly anticipating. The players were already familiar with the rules of the final event. The players were also familiar with the rules of the final event. Facing the rain and dew, the color of the grass is crisp. Spring comes and summer goes, and the grass is as usual. My poetic heart is still there. The wind blows gently in the rain. There are no children by the pine tree, looking at each other from afar, rustling. Hundreds of miles of corpses, mountains crumbled, and the earth was destroyed. After 10,000 years of silence, it finally came into being. As the puzzles appeared on the moon, a translucent answer panel appeared in front of the players. Most of the players were clueless about the answers to the puzzles. They decisively opened the activity channel and called for backup. Lu Wu did not stop them. The event was meant to be fun, so it was normal for them to look for the answers. However, there were only 10 million people who could answer the questions in each round. Whether they could get the prize depended entirely on their hand speed. However, even the answers given by others in the activity channel might not be correct enough. The players would always have different answers, which gave a headache to most of the players who wanted to copy the answers through the activity channel. They could not decide whose answer was better. Some of the players chose to write down the answer of the person they saw first. They could not understand it anyway, so it did not matter. Others relied on guessing the answers, but rookies like us relied on gambling. However, the players did not expect a lantern to appear in front of them after they filled in the answers, and chose to submit. The 3 answers were printed on the lantern, and it slowly floated toward the full moon. When it rose into the sky, the lantern with the correct answer would turn into beautiful fireworks and scatter. At this moment, the beautiful fireworks materialized, just like the joy in the players' hearts. The festive atmosphere created by the players once again caused a wave of 666 in the activity channel. Time passed quickly while they were guessing the answers and admiring the moon. During this period, they took out the mooncakes they got from the koi gift-giving event and shared them with each other. The atmosphere was joyful and harmonious, and their faces were filled with happiness from the bottom of their hearts. The fast-paced reality put a lot of people under great pressure, and they no longer attached much importance to the festival. However, here they could enjoy the real joy of the festival and indulge in it. When the clock struck 12, the Mid-Autumn Festival event came to an end, accompanied by a server announcement. The players were reluctant to part. Every time this happened, the players would always think that it would be great if the day could be longer. They had not had enough fun yet. At this moment, the players suddenly realized that the full moon was sprinkling thousands of soft lights again, converging into a bridge that reached the central square of the Mansion of the Dead. I am very grateful for the help from the descendants of Bakey. If you don't mind, I would like to dance for you. Hearing this, the players suddenly burst into an uproar. They said that they did not mind, but they did not expect that there would be an Easter egg after the event. At this moment, Chang, Yi's figure slowly rose into the sky as she danced, landing on the bridge formed by the condensed moonlight. She sang an ethereal song that was as lively as water. Her figure danced, and her long sleeves followed. At this moment, her figure gradually disappeared, as if she was bidding farewell to the players. At this moment, many players were stunned, until the bridge formed by the condensed moonlight dissipated completely, and Chang, Yi also merged into the full moon. The players were still stunned, unable to extricate themselves for a long time. At this moment, no one knew who started it, but the public channel was once again flooded with World Campaign No. 1. As for why the players said World Campaign No. 1, that was the reason. The process of playing the game was more like a different and exciting life. There were happiness and sadness, and there were also many shocks that moved them and made their blood boil. The so-called dog officials were the same. They never treated this game as a commercial product to make money, but instead, they considered everything for the players. Apart from being stingy, they were simply the perfect dog officials. Seeing that the players were having so much fun, Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, could not help but laugh. He had spent a lot of money on today's event, and his stock of soul coins had been depleted. After thinking about it, he felt that it was time for a wave of pay-to-win. Lucky Roulette. Chapter 602. Bakey Lily Coast. The Mid-Autumn Festival event ended, and the players' lives returned to normal. Explorers, navigators, brick-moving players, lifestyle players, and so on. Every player had a different path in the game as they continued their exciting life in the other world. On this day, in the shallow waters of Bakey's Lily Sea, a head slowly surfaced from the bottom of the water. He looked around, first checking the warships and ships docked at the edge of the sea, then looking at the players passing by on the shore. After a moment of contemplation, he began to swim toward the shore. As he neared the shore, his body slowly floated out of the water, the scales on his body reflecting a dazzling radiance under the sun. His body gradually shrunk, and in the blink of an eye he was in human form and looked no different from the players. Even if one looked closely, they would not be able to see any flaws. Looking at his own reflection in the water, Oatmeal grinned in satisfaction. In fact, he had been lurking around this area for several days. His purpose here was to help the Netherworld Devour Sea branch investigate the player clan. As for the reason, it was simple. Recently, an extremely important batch of resources was hijacked after being transported to the Kowloon Ocean. The higher-ups of the devouring Netherworld branch were furious and sent a large number of people to investigate the matter. However, the result was obvious. According to the description of the merchants on the merchant ship, the Shark Bite Chamber of Commerce had been blinded by greed. However, another force had appeared afterward, causing the Shark Bite Chamber of Commerce to fall short of success at the last moment. Even their president, Black Shark, had died in the battle. Huang Quan's Devour branch didn't completely believe this, and instead carefully investigated the area where the naval battle took place. However, it turned out that the merchants on the merchant ships were not lying. The wreckage of the battleship at the bottom of the sea was proof. At the same time, there were many battleships from the Mute fleet. It was enough to show how intense the battle was. While the higher-ups of the Yellow Springs Devouring Sea branch were shocked by Shark Bite Chamber of Commerce's betrayal, they were also extremely angry. The prestige of the Underworld Merchant Guild was not to be challenged. This was not just a saying. Although the Shark Bite Chamber of Commerce had been destroyed in this battle, there was still one thief who hadn't received the punishment he deserved. Later, in a meeting of the upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce, someone proposed to annihilate the player clan in a thunderous manner, and many agreed. However, at this time, someone stood up and suggested that they should first investigate the player clan's background before making a decision. For this reason, he expressed his opinion and convinced everyone in the meeting. First of all, the player clan's idea of plundering merchant ships was fundamentally different from the Shark Bite Chamber of Commerce. The Shark Bite Merchant Union had done this secretly and was prepared to erase all clues. He had never thought of becoming enemies with the Netherworld Merchant Union because he didn't dare and knew that the Netherworld Merchant Union was too powerful for him to contend with. However, the player clan was very strange. It was practically a robbery on the surface. It was as if they were not worried about being discovered by the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Arrogance could no longer be used to describe him. Most importantly, this wasn't the first time this had happened. Previously, the player clan had done the same and successfully overturned the War Chamber of Commerce, Smoke Dragon. Therefore, in his opinion, there might be some unspeakable conspiracy behind the repeated provocations. In order to convince everyone present, this person even took out a piece of information that he had recently obtained from an investigation. From this, he learned that the player clan was not a sea power. Their main power was rooted on land, and they had only recently joined the struggle for supremacy in the sea. Although the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce was very powerful in the sea, their control over the land was very limited. Therefore, before exterminating the player clan, it was best to investigate it thoroughly. His reasoning convinced everyone present. After listening to his analysis, the upper echelons of the Chamber of Commerce also felt that the player clan was indeed as strange as what this person had said. It had been a long time since a power dared to openly challenge the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, they subconsciously thought that the player clan must have someone backing them to be so fearless. This was because the forces that dared to challenge the ruling position of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce were the same. They were either extremely powerful themselves or had the support of other superpowers. However, in the end, none of them succeeded. The Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's dynasty was still stable. After making the decision, Huang went to the Chamber of Commerce to find the Illusion Fish Clan, a very famous bounty team in the Devouring Sea. He gave them a batch of resources as remuneration and asked them to secretly investigate the player clan. As this was a commission from the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce, the Illusion Fish Clan attached great importance to it. Although the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce had never interfered in the power struggle of the major sea regions and focused all their attention on the struggle of the Central Sea region. However, the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce controlled the trade of all the sea regions. Their powerful strength was unquestionable. Therefore, the Illusion Fish Clan did not dare to be negligent. They immediately sent Yan Mai, who had the most potential and was the most likely to become the next clan leader, to investigate this matter. After a few days of observation, Yan Mai had confirmed the appearance and characteristics of the player clan. He was finally ready to take action. After successfully transforming, Yan Mai arrived at the Liuli coast. He then walked toward the land of Beiki. His current goal was to go to the central main city of the player clan, which was the Mansion of the Dead. Basically, one could tell the exact strength of a force by looking at the central main city of the force. Yan Mai was very experienced in this. As he walked along the way, it was just as he expected. With the help of the racial talent, transformation, although he encountered many players along the way who were walking toward the Liuli coast, no one noticed anything different about him. They just brushed past each other. Yan Mai was a little nervous at first, but he soon relaxed. At this moment, Yan Mai was very proud of himself. With the help of the racial talent, he had completed the previous infiltration missions with ease. He was not discovered until the end. He felt that it would be the same this time. There was no problem at all. With a joyful mood, Yan Mai kept walking toward the Mansion of the Dead. As for where the Mansion of the Dead was, there was no need to ask for directions. With so many players coming from that direction, it was obvious at a glance. As the number of players he encountered increased, Yan Mai was sure that his disguise was impeccable. Moreover, he did not need to steal anything from the main city of the player clan for this investigation. He also did not need to get in touch with the higher-ups of the player clan. All he needed to do was to walk around the main city and roughly assess the strength of the player clan. With this layer of disguise, the difficulty of such a mission was too easy for him. But soon he did not think so. This was because he did not expect that the players had an almost bug-level ability, analysis. Although the players would not use this ability on other players without special circumstances, there were always exceptions. There was such a group of players who liked to go around and check the information of other players' equipment. They would record and calculate some things, then make it into a guide and post it on the forum. On the way to the Mansion of the Dead, Yan Mai happened to meet such a player who was collecting data along the way. When he saw Yan Mai, the player's expression gradually became very interesting. However, after discovering that Yan Mai's strength had reached the peak of the Ghost King realm, he did not attack. Instead, he took a few screenshots and posted them on the forum to gain some popularity. At this time in the forum, a post made by a player attracted the attention of many people. I met a player on the way just now. I subconsciously opened an analysis to see the information. Guess what I found? Laughing emoji. Original poster. The little hunter who caught broken teeth content. 1,000 words omitted. Attached pictures X3. Yan Mai Ghost King Peak. Character details. Member of the Phantom Fish Bounty Group, the top force in the Devouring Sea. A strong competitor for the next clan leader of the Phantom Fish Clan. Proficient in the clan's innate ability, Transmogrify has completed several missions that were considered impossible by the outside world, and is known as the most promising successor of the new generation of the Phantom Fish Clan. Character status. Normal. Seeing this post, the players on the forum were suddenly in a heated discussion. Not only were the players not afraid of the arrival of such an intruder, but they were also a little excited. Watermelon_Taro. Come. Let's bet on the purpose of this person's visit. Bet that he's here for sightseeing. 110. It's time to make money. Hurry up and place your soul coins. Laughing emoji. Shueli_the_strongest. Do you want to give him a surprise? I'm in the city now. How about I go out and stab him in the back? Laughing emoji. Assassin Creed. Upstairs, please bring a team of assassins and sneak over, then jump out together to scare him to death. Laughing emoji. Peppa_Boar. Hurry up and make arrangements for him. This guy has bad intentions. He's definitely here to cause trouble. Crayon_Shinchan. It's so boring to kill him directly. Let him enter the city. Since he's transmogrified, there's no doubt that he's a spy. So let him enter the city. When the time comes, close the door and let him struggle inside. We'll surround him when he thinks that he's got the information he wants and that his mission has been completed. Then we'll give him a surprise. Then we'll make him despair and deal a mental blow. Laughing emoji. A_large_wolf dog replied to Crayon_Shinchan. Shameless, too shameless. Crayon_Shinchan replied to A_large_wolf dog, patting the dog's head with a smile. We're talking among the player clan. Why are you butting in? Have you forgotten what race you're from after spending so much time with the player clan? Neptune's Twitter. JPG, 2_tigers. Interesting. Quick, let him enter the city. I want to see what this guy is up to. Expect an eyes. JPG. As the players discussed, more and more players learned that such a spy was approaching the Mansion of the Dead. At this moment, the players were discussing how to give this spy a big surprise. Oates, who was still walking toward the Mansion of the Dead, had no idea that he had been clearly arranged by the players before he even reached his destination. As he walked, Oates suddenly felt that something was wrong, because many players who passed by would steal a glance at him, and then an inexplicable smile would appear on their faces. Oates was sure that this was not the custom and characteristic of the player clan, because the player clan members he met on the way before weren't like this, and many of them didn't even look at him. At this moment, he inexplicably felt a little strange. Oates didn't think that he had exposed himself, because until now, he hadn't communicated with any players. From the outside, he looked like a normal player, and he was full of confidence in his ability to disguise himself. Back then, even a late-stage Ghost Emperor powerhouse couldn't see through his disguise, let alone the player clan. However, there was something that Oates didn't know. These passing players were purely driven by curiosity to rush over from the Mansion of the Dead. They just wanted to take a closer look at him. Their mentality was like watching a monkey. Chapter 603. While Yen Mai was on his way to the Mansion of the Dead, the player's original plan to prank him had suddenly changed. The reason was that the players near the Kuelong Ocean had sent a message. The Sea King had found them and informed them of a piece of news. The Sea King had now become the player's spy in the Underworld Merchant Guild. According to the Sea King's description, a force was about to arrive in Baiki. And their purpose was to investigate the player clan's background and inform the Underworld Chamber of Commerce of the situation. At the same time, the Sea King gave the players a solution, because killing this person was completely insignificant to the Underworld Merchant Guild. Therefore, the most important thing was to frighten this person and mislead him into thinking that the player clan was extremely powerful so that they could bring the fake news back, so that the Underworld Merchant Guild would not dare to cause trouble for a short period of time. After all, the underworld merchant guild that devoured the sea was only a branch. Other than the few higher-ups, the strongest was the War Merchant Guild. Therefore, if they encountered a particularly powerful force, they could only seek help from the Central Sea and would not dare to take the initiative to attack. However, what the Sea King did not know was that Yenmai had already arrived at the Mansion of the Dead. However, the players in the Kuelong Ocean instantly conveyed the information provided by the Sea King to the players in the Mansion of the Dead by relying on the super long-distance, real-time communication function. At this moment, the players who were ready to kill Yenmai decided to change their plan and play something else. After a 3-hour journey, Yenmai realized that the surrounding environment had changed drastically as he approached the Mansion of the Dead. Along the way, there were osmanthus trees planted everywhere, and the fragrance of the place filled his nose. Looking up into the distance, a tall and majestic city stood in the distance. It was rare to see a city of this scale above the sea. Moreover, in the underworld where wars were frequent, it was normal for cities to be occupied or plundered. Basically, no force would spend a lot of effort to build a city. Based on his preconceived notions, Yenmai felt that the player clan must have a strong foundation. As he approached the gate of the Mansion of the Dead, Yenmai stopped and began to observe the players entering the city. He had to be careful. If the player clan needed to be inspected or provided with something before entering the city, he could easily expose himself if he did not investigate in advance. After checking and confirming that the players did not need to go through any procedures to enter the city, Yenmai plucked up his courage and walked toward the gate of the Mansion of the Dead. When he arrived at the gate, he glanced around and followed behind a few players who were walking into the city with a calm expression. However, what he did not know was that the players in front of him were already chatting in the live chat channel. "Is that the idiot behind you? You're quite good at acting. If it wasn't for analysis, I wouldn't have been able to discover him. His disguise is indeed very good. Ha ha ha, looking forward to his performance. The bait has taken the bait. He's a ghost king after all. Everyone, don't laugh so arrogantly. Give him some face, ha ha ha." After following these players into the city, Yenmai was shocked by the prosperity before him. He had never seen such a bustling city in his life. The jade-paved road was bustling with people, and the buildings on both sides were beautifully decorated. In the distance, there were fountains and neon lights. Oates found all of this unbelievable. The maritime kingdoms he had seen on the islands had never been so prosperous. Even though this underworld city was built on land, Yenmai still found it somewhat inconceivable. Could it be that this city had never experienced war before? If it wasn't for the long-term development, Oates didn't believe that the city could have developed to this extent. Just as Yenmai was feeling puzzled, he suddenly heard 2 people whispering in front of him. He immediately took 2 steps forward and pricked up his ears to eavesdrop. "Oh yes, it seems like Chairman Lu slaughtered a god yesterday. He's now left in the east square of the city. Should we go take a look?" "Sure, let's go take a look. Speaking of which, this is Chairman Lu's 8th time slaughtering a god. That's really impressive. I wonder when we'll be able to reach this level of strength." Looking at the 2 players gradually walking away, Yenmai was dumbfounded. Slaughtering a god? The 8th time? Did he think he was slaughtering a chicken? At this moment, Yenmai was stunned. Obviously, he couldn't accept the arrogant words of the 2 players casually saying that they had slaughtered a god. God-level powerhouses were almost invincible even in the sea. Even the sea spirits mostly had the strength of a demigod. Once they broke through, they would leave the sea and head for the Central Sea. In other words, other than the Central Sea of the underworld, god-level powerhouses represented almost invincible in all the major seas. Hearing these words, Yenmai felt like he had been dealt a heavy blow. Refusing to believe it, he immediately followed behind the 2 players and walked toward the east square of the underworld. Although Yenmai was shocked by the prosperity along the way, he wanted to know whether the 2 players' claim of slaughtering a god was true or not. Or rather, the god that they mentioned was just a name and not a real god. But soon he would know whether it was true or not. following the two players to the south square of the city, he saw the enormous body of the demonic god that was as huge as a mountain. At this moment, the demonic god was covered in wounds and looked extremely weak. He lay motionless on the ground. Seeing this, Yen Mai was completely dumbfounded. Previously, he was still guessing whether the gods were real or not. But the moment he saw the demonic god, his doubts disappeared. At this moment, the demonic god exuded a vast aura, and the shining god seal on his forehead proved that he was a god on the underworld god list. This is AF * King God. At this moment, Yen Mai felt that the player clan was not just powerful. They were so powerful that it was suffocating. Actually, he had never underestimated the player clan. The reason was simple. Because this was a mission sent by the Underworld Trade Union. If they were a weak force, they would have been destroyed long ago. Why would they need to investigate personally? But he did not expect the player clan to have a powerhouse that could kill a god. Although the Underworld Trade Union also had such a powerhouse, such powerhouses only existed in the Central Sea region and not in the other large seas. This was also the first time he had seen a god-level powerhouse that was seriously injured. Even standing in front of him, the vast aura caused Yen Mai's body to tremble uncontrollably. It was as if a sea of blood had appeared in front of him, and he had turned into a duckweed, swaying in the waves of blood. It was as if he would be crushed by the huge waves at any time. While he was extremely shocked, Yen Mai felt uneasy and fear rose in his heart. At this moment, he had a guess. The player clan was such a powerful force. Now that they dared to challenge the Underworld Trade Union. Did that mean that they had the intention to overthrow the Underworld Trade Union and replace it? At this moment, he had come to investigate on the side of the Underworld Trade Union. If he was discovered, the consequences would be dire. Trying to survive in the middle of two great forces would only result in being completely crushed and the destruction of his clan. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. Taking a deep breath, Yen Mai turned around and walked towards the city gate. He could not stay here any longer. Before coming here, he had thought that it would be a good job, but he did not expect it to be a hot potato. Seeing such a terrifying truth with his own eyes, Yen Mai was extremely anxious. If the clan was involved in the war, the consequences would be unimaginable. He had to inform the clan leader of this news first. If a war really broke out between the player clan and the Underworld Trade Union, he could only hope that the Illusion Fish clan would stand in a neutral position and hide far away. They could not be involved, and they could not be misunderstood as siding with the Underworld Trade Union. It would be fine if the player clan was weak. However, it was proven that the player clan was not weak, but terrifyingly powerful. How could he watch the Illusion Fish clan be destroyed because of this? He had to go back as soon as possible. On the way back, Yen Mai suddenly stopped in his tracks. Not far away, a person walked by. This person was holding a jug of wine in each hand, taking 2 sips with every step he took. Yen Mai had not seen this person with his own eyes, but he was extremely familiar with his appearance. It was a portrait that hung in the clan's ancestral worship hall all year round. Every day, he would be led by the clan elder to kowtow to it. How could he not be familiar with it? At this moment, the first thought in Yen Mai's mind was, "Fake, it's definitely fake. He died a long time ago. It's just his appearance. Don't be afraid." At this moment, Haiyu, who was shopping, suddenly turned around and looked at Yen Mai, causing him to tremble in fear. A member of the Illusion Fish clan. Hearing the woman in front of him call out his origin, Yen Mai was almost scared to tears. He had clearly disguised himself so well. How did she see through him at a glance? Thinking of this, he hurriedly turned his head to look around. Fortunately, no players noticed him. At this moment, Haiyu took 2 steps forward and stared at him with her drunken eyes. "Is your clan leader, Phantom Thorn, still alive?" This sentence scared Yen Mai again. Could it be that his guess was right? Phantom Thorn was the ancestor of the Illusion Fish clan. He had been dead for many years. Yen Mai only knew about this ancestor from listening to the clan elders talking about the clan's history. Back then, the ancestor, Phantom Thorn, followed the woman in the portrait in the ancestral worship hall. Could this woman before him really be the Empress, the overlord of the Nethersea nation? An absurd possibility surfaced in Yen Mai's mind. In Yen Mai's opinion, the legendary Empress had been dead for countless years. Perhaps her corpse had rotted away. How could she still exist? "You are," Yen Mai asked in a soft voice. "Your ancestor, Phantom Thorn, once followed me." The words were shocking. Even though Yen Mai had mentally prepared himself, he was still stunned when he heard this. "Since you are the descendant of an acquaintance, hurry up and leave. Don't expose your identity. Why are you here?" Yen Mai couldn't help but ask. "Hurry up and leave. I can't save you if you're discovered. Even your clan will be implicated." Hai Yu glared at him. Panicking, Yen Mai hurriedly nodded and quickly walked out of the city. At this moment, Yen Mai had no intention of continuing his investigation. He only wanted to return to the clan as soon as possible and inform them of the news. If possible, he might as well evacuate the entire clan from the devouring sea to avoid being implicated. However, when he reached the city gate, he stopped again. At this moment, a man clad in armor stood on top of the city gate. Outside the city gate were thousands of player clan members kneeling. "You violated the clan rules. Die!" As the man roared, he threw a punch downward. In Yen Mai's opinion, this punch was weak and did not have any lethality at all. But soon he didn't think so. The thousands of players below did not even have the time to scream before they were shattered into black mist and dissipated with the wind. It was as if they had never existed. Seeing this scene, Yen Mai was stunned on the spot. At this moment, Lu Chai, who was standing on top of the city gate, turned his head to look at Yen Mai. "President Lu, give me a boxed meal and a chicken drumstick." Realizing that Lu Chai was looking at him, Yen Mai was so scared that he almost cried. "This place is too scary. I'm scared to death. I'm still young. I don't want to die." Chapter 604. Yen Mai's initial confidence had turned into fear and trepidation. His heart had suffered a huge blow. First, he saw the heavily injured god. Then he met the elder ancestor who he thought had died many years ago. At this moment, he no longer had the intention to stay and investigate. However, just as he was about to leave, he encountered another terrifying scene. The guy standing on the city gate had vaporized thousands of player clansmen in front of him with a single punch. The most terrifying thing was that Yen Mai did not even sense any energy fluctuation from this punch. It also did not hurt the ground or the flowers and grass. This kind of absolute control over power was something Oates had never seen before. At this moment, the guy standing at the city gate suddenly turned his head to look at him. Yen Mai was instantly shocked. Countless ways of dying appeared in his mind. In his mind, the plot had already been arranged. However, Lu Chai, who stood at the city gate, only smiled at him. He did not do anything extreme. At this moment, Yen Mai was terrified. He was not sure if he had been discovered or not. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and mustered up the courage to walk toward the city gate. Fortunately, the expert on the city gate did not stop him from leaving the city. He only watched him quietly, making Yen Mai's scalp tingle. After leaving the city, Yen Mai continued to walk quickly. When he realized that there was no movement behind him, he could not help but look back. However, he found that the man on the city gate was still smiling at him. Seeing this, Yen Mai hurriedly quickened his pace. After a while, he changed to running and finally flew. Even though he had left the mansion of the dead, his heart was still thumping. Not only was the confidence he had when he first arrived gone, there was even a trace of joy in his heart for surviving a disaster. That scared the hell out of me. At first, he was very curious as to why the player clan dared to provoke the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Now he finally understood that the player clan had the guts to do so. If the Underworld Chamber of Commerce did not mobilize its forces in the Central Sea, Yenmai felt that the Underworld branch in the Devouring Sea would not be able to do anything to the player clan. In a direct confrontation, they would definitely lose. At this moment, he only wanted to return to the clan as soon as possible and report this matter to the clan leader and the clan elders. He did not want to report the information he had obtained directly to the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. After all, if the player clan really wanted to start a war with the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce, it would be extremely unwise to choose a side ahead of time. They might even end up as cannon fodder. Yenmai sped through the air and arrived at the colored glass sea. Yenmai jumped into the water, his body twisting as he transformed into his original fishman form and quickly swam to the bottom of the sea. After Yenmai left, the thousands of players who had been blasted into black mist by the punch came online one after another in front of the mansion of the dead. At this moment, they could not help but burst into laughter. The live chat was in an uproar. "Boss Lou, I'll let you act tough, but you're not going to give us lunch boxes and chicken legs." "Boss Lou, I heard that you severely injured the demonic god." "That's amazing, ha ha ha. It's not just the evil god. He's killed a total of 8 deity-level experts. Boss Lou's divine skills are unparalleled and invincible. That's why he's a lunchbox." Breaking the rules of the clan, I trembled and stretched out my hand to ask for a lunchbox. Pitiful. "JPG!" At that moment, the players had turned into drama queens and were making a ruckus in the live chat channel. Looking down, a smile appeared on Lu Chai's face. In fact, the original plan was exactly like what Crayon Shinchan had said. Oats would enter the city, and then he would be allowed to explore as he pleased. He would be pleasantly surprised, and then he would be left in despair after closing the door. To be honest, Lu Chai did not take a Ghost King level expert seriously. This was Hell City, but it was no longer the hell of the past. The players here were far more powerful than they used to be. It was impossible for Sun to come and go as he pleased like that time. However, the Sea King's suggestion made them change their strategy. Although they were not afraid of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce, they would be under immense pressure if they were to start a war with the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Right now, the players' focus was still on defeating the corpse race in the Sanluo region. They wanted to stall for as long as they could. According to the Sea King, the scouts from the Underworld Chamber of Commerce had to realize that the player clan was extremely powerful, and then bring back false information. Then the script expert Yin Xiaoqi took action and arranged the development of the plot for the players. That was how Lu Chai's moment of showing off came about. Although it was just an act, Lu Chai still wanted to say that it was King awesome. Sure enough, pretending to be pretentious was pleasurable. As for the chicken drumsticks and bento boxes, the guild needed to develop and they were running out of soul coins. So I can't see anything. 5 days later, on the Phantom Fish Coral Island in the Devouring Sea, Yenmai, who had sailed at high speed for 5 days without any rest, finally arrived at the clan land. His figure emerged from the water, stepped on the coral reef, and walked toward the island. Seeing his appearance, the Phantom Fish clan children who were playing on the coral reef revealed respectful gazes. They stopped making noise and stood in a row to bow to him. The Phantom Fish clan had strict rules and a clear hierarchy. Facing Yenmai, who might be the next clan leader, these children dared not neglect him and immediately showed their respect. Seeing this, Yenmai turned his head and smiled. Then he quickly walked toward the center of the island. There was a bottomless sea eye in the center of the coral island. After Yenmai arrived, he leaped into it and dived toward the depths of the sea eye. While diving, Yenmai encountered a few waves of patrolling soldiers from the Phantom Fish clan. However, facing Yenmai, they all bowed respectfully and did not stop him at all. After diving for about 3,000 meters, a palace made of 5-colored coral appeared in front of Yenmai. This was also his destination. When he arrived at the front of the coral palace, Yenmai's expression froze. He looked at the 3 soldiers at the door and said, "Inform the clan leader and all the clan elders that I have something to report. I'm calling for an urgent clan meeting." Upon hearing this, the 3 Illusion Fish clan soldiers hurriedly nodded and immediately dispersed to relay Yen Mai's orders. At this moment, Yen Mai walked into the Coral Palace. The interior of the palace was luxuriously furnished. Countless treasures from the bottom of the sea that shone with 5-colored flowing lights were scattered in the interior. However, in the eyes of Yen Mai in this era, this small palace was simply a chicken coop compared to the majestic mansion of the dead of the Player clan. It was completely incomparable. While waiting, the clan elders and the clan leader quickly rushed over. Their expressions were extremely solemn. Yen Mai, who went to investigate the Player clan, did not go to the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he returned to the clan. No matter how he looked at it, something was not right. Soon, the upper echelons of the Phantom Fish clan gathered. Apart from Yen Mai, there were a total of 10 people. They were the clan elders of the 9 major branches of the Phantom Fish clan, as well as the clan's ruler, the clan leader. After everyone arrived, the clan leader, whose body was covered in black fish scales, impatiently asked, "Tell us what happened. Tell us, what exactly is going on? Why did you inform us to come here? Could it be that something has happened?" Hearing that, Yen Mai nodded and said, "Clan leader, guess what I saw in the main city of the Player clan this time? I'm guessing your ancestor. Hurry up and tell us what happened." The hot-tempered clan leader immediately rebuked. If Yen Mai was not the successor that he personally selected, he might have given him a slap. Keeping people in suspense was the most annoying thing. "Clan leader, you're right. I saw the ancestor in the main city of the Player clan." Hearing this, all the clan elders were stunned. Meanwhile, the clan leader rolled up his sleeves and was ready to beat him up. The corpse of the ancestor, Phantom Sting, is still buried under the altar in the ancestral worship hall. Do I look like someone who can take a joke? I have no choice but to beat him up. Clan leader, sit down. Let me finish. Seeing that the clan leader was about to beat him up, Yen Mai quickly waved his hand. "Little brat, you're going to be the clan leader soon. I think you're getting more and more out of hand. You even dare to joke about the ancestor. I'm going to beat you to death." Seeing this, the clan elders quickly stepped forward and held back the clan leader who was about to pounce on Yen Mai. After some persuasion, they indicated that they should let Yen Mai finish speaking. At this moment, Yen Mai was extremely embarrassed. After all, he would not have believed it if he had not seen it with his own eyes. At this time, one of the clan elders glared at Yen Mai. "Hurry up and tell us. What are you waiting for? I really want to get beaten up." Yen Mai quickly nodded. Then he explained in detail what he saw and heard during his days in the Lily Sea. Finally, he transformed into a human and snuck into the main city of the Player clan. At this moment, all the people present were dumbfounded. If they did not know Yen Mai very well, they would definitely think that Yen Mai was either crazy or stupid. First, he killed a god, then he killed an ancestor. Listening to Yen Mai's description, they could already imagine the tension and danger at that time. After a full half an hour, Yen Mai finished the whole story. Then he said with a solemn expression, "Now the Illusion Fish clan is in a very dangerous situation. If we choose a side in advance, we may face the danger of extinction." Upon hearing that, the illusionary fish clan leader and the clan elders' faces gradually turned solemn. At this moment, the clan leader could not help but ask for confirmation. "Are you sure that the person you saw was a god, the queen of the Nethersea nation?" At this moment, the clan leader could not help but ask for confirmation. "I'm sure that the person I saw was definitely a god on the underworld god list. The god seal on his forehead could not be faked. I even found it difficult to breathe in front of him. As for whether the woman I saw was the queen of the Nethersea nation, I can't guarantee it. However, she looked exactly the same as the woman in the portrait in the ancestral worship hall. Moreover, she told me personally that our ancestor, Huan Si, used to follow her." Hearing this, the Illusion Fish clan leader nodded. It's not impossible to identify her. Back then, the Illusion Fish clan was also a part of the Nether Sea Nation. It's just that after the death of the queen, our clan separated from the Nether Sea Nation. Our ancestor, Huan Ci, left behind a soul confinement pearl after his death. This keepsake was originally created by the queen of the Nether Sea Nation to prevent her subordinates from betraying her. It's used to control her subordinates' soul devices. Through this pearl, we can determine whether the person you saw was the queen of the Nether Sea Nation or an impostor. Come, follow me to the ancestral worship hall. Saying this, the Illusion Fish clan leader stood up from the coral chair and walked out of the palace. Seeing this, Yen Mai and the clan elders immediately stood up and followed. Following the clan leader, they continued to dive deeper into the eye of the sea. After a distance, they arrived at the ancestral worship hall of the Illusion Fish clan. After entering the ancestral worship hall, they saw many spirit tablets floating in the water in front of them. There was a whirlpool below each spirit tablet, and an ancestor of the Illusion Fish clan was buried in each of them. At this moment, the Illusion Fish clan leader knelt down and led Yen Mai and the clan elders to kowtow 9 times to the centermost spirit tablet. Then, he stood up and led the clan into the whirlpool. This whirlpool led straight underground. After everyone stepped into it, countless blue spots of light appeared in front of their eyes. Upon closer inspection, they realized that these blue spots of light were emitted by many small worms wriggling in the water. Be careful. Don't touch the spiritual sea worm guardian. Facing these worms, the Illusion Fish clan leader was very cautious. He took out a fish bone and waved it in front of him. Instantly, the surrounding small worms scattered, not daring to come close. Along the way, the group arrived in front of a sacrificial altar made of jade. There were countless pictures on it, and the portrait in the center was the appearance of their ancestor, Huan Ci, when he was alive. Other than that, there were 2 weapons, a broken piece of armor, and many other small items on the sacrificial altar. These items were used by Huan Ci, the ancestor of the Illusion Fish clan, when he was alive. After his death, they were buried here with him. This was also the first time Yen Mai had come to the tomb of the ancestor, and his expression became very respectful. Although it was not the ancestor, Huan Ci, who had single-handedly created the Illusion Fish clan's current glory. But it was this ancestor who had led the earliest batch of Illusion Fish clan members on the path of becoming stronger. That was why the Illusion Fish clan had its current achievements. He had always been the pioneer who was respected by the descendants of the Illusion Fish clan. And reverence for the ancestor was also the reason why the Illusion Fish clan could remain united and slowly grow into a top force in the Devouring Sea region. Under the leadership of the clan leader, Yen Mai and the rest knelt down and recited the ancestral worship, expressing their reverence for this ancestor. After a while, the Illusion Fish clan leader stood up and looked at a pearl placed among the items on the sacrificial altar. This pearl was the sole tool that the Nether Sea Empress had used to control her subordinates. It would also be the key for them to determine if the woman Yen Mai had seen was the Empress. The Illusion Fish clan leader walked to the sacrificial altar and took the pearl from the sacrificial altar. He held it in his hand. As spiritual power was injected, 2 dim soul lines appeared in the blood pearl. One of them represented the ancestor, Huan Ci, and the other represented the Nether Sea Empress, who controlled the ancestor's life and death. When spiritual energy filled the entire soul pearl, one of the soul lines remained extremely dim, but the soul line that represented the Empress became extremely resplendent. At this moment, the Illusion Fish clan leader was extremely shocked. The Nether Sea Empress had left behind many legends in the nearby sea region. Her cruelty, cold-bloodedness, and her rapid rise to power were all legendary stories that the later generations loved to talk about. But the Nether Sea Empress' final ending, be it in the historical records or the stories passed down by word of mouth, was her death. At this moment, seeing that the soul line that represented the Empress was still glowing, he was sure that the Nether Sea Empress was still alive and well. At this moment, how could he not believe what Yenmai had said? It was obvious that the player clan not only had experts who could kill gods, but they also had the Empress who had created the Nether Sea Kingdom. At this moment, the Huan Ci clan leader's expression became extremely solemn. At this moment, he felt that since the player clan was hiding so many secrets, they must be plotting something. Just as Yenmai had said, standing on the Acheron Merchant Guild's side at this time might bring disaster to the clan. Standing at the side, Yenmai could not help but ask, "Clan leader, is it true or not?" Hearing this, the Huan Ci clan leader took a deep breath. The Nether Sea Empress is indeed not dead, so the person you saw is basically the Empress. Hearing this, even though they were mentally prepared, Yenmai and the clan elders were still shocked. When they were young, they had all heard about the legendary story of the woman in the portrait in the ancestral worship hall, which was also the story of the Empress. Even the few white-haired clan elders present were no exception. Even back then, when the elders taught a disobedient and mischievous child a lesson, they would say, "If you don't listen, the Empress will take you away and eat you." These words were a childhood trauma for many of the older generation of the Illusion Fish clan. Although they had grown up and understood that this was just a way for the elders to scare them, their impression of the Empress had become very deep. Therefore, when they heard that the Empress was still alive, they all felt as if an ancient demon had awakened. They could not help but tremble. Chapter 605. Inside the palace of the Illusion Fish clan in the engulfing sea. Such a willful choice was in line with the path that the Illusion Fish clan had always taken. The story of the Illusion Fish clan's growth emerged in his mind. "Tell me your second opinion," the Illusion Fish clan chief said again. "I hope the player clan won't disappoint us," the clan leader said after taking a deep breath. After all, his decision could push the Illusion Fish clan into the abyss. No matter which side he chose, the consequences would be unimaginable. The clan leader sighed and fell into deep thought. It turned out that the Empress of the Nether Sea had never died, which meant that the story of her death was just a lie. At this moment, he made his decision. Actually, everyone knows the consequences of choosing the wrong side. The player clan isn't unbreakable. If the war gets out of hand, the Underworld Chamber of Commerce will mobilize all their forces in the Central Sea region. By then, it's unknown whether the player clan can fight back. If we lose, then the Illusion Fish clan will be gone too. But I understand one thing. My clan's elder used to follow the Empress, and she is now on the player clan's side, another elder said. After a moment of silence, the clan leader finally said, "Actually, everyone knows the consequences of choosing the wrong side." They didn't know what the Empress of the Nether Sea was planning, but they understood one thing from Yenmai. Yenmai nodded. "You're lying. You're thinking the same thing, but now you want me to be the scapegoat. When I become the clan leader, I'll have to repay you." Yenmai complained softly, but quickly shut up when he saw the clan leader rolling up his sleeves. Moreover, the player clan's foundation is on land and not in the sea region. This is already a great advantage. Because they have completely taken over Baiki, they won't face the same situation as the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, where their foundation is unstable due to the transfer of their top forces. Therefore, if the player clan really wants to start a war, I think they have a lot of advantages. At this thought, they had a feeling that a storm was brewing. My second opinion is to join the player clan, regardless of whether they start a war with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. All the Illusion Fish clan knew that their current glory was due to the importance they placed on their ancestors. However, the player clan's current actions did seem like they wanted to start a war. Just as Yenmai had said, the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce was present in every sea region. After all, they controlled the transportation routes of the entire Netherworld sea region. Even if they hid, they could only hide for a while, not forever. Looking at the surprised gazes of Yenmai and the others, the members of the Illusion Fish clan could not help but laugh. At this moment, the 9 elders couldn't help but nod in agreement with Yenmai. That was terrifying. Tell me about it. The Illusion Fish Clan leader said immediately. I have two ideas now. First, don't get involved. Take advantage of the fact that the war hasn't broken out to move our tribe away from here and head to the distant seas. This way, we can avoid being affected when the war breaks out. However, there was a huge hidden danger in doing so. If we accept the Underworld Chamber of Commerce's mission and leave without saying goodbye, we will thoroughly offend the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. If the Underworld Chamber of Commerce wins this battle, they will definitely come after us. With their power that covers all the seas, it will be useless for us to hide. So, the premise of my idea is that the player clan wins in the end. Of course, before that, I have to meet with the higher-ups of the player clan. If they are not satisfied, we will simply move away from the nearby seas and get lost. As for the future, let's talk about it later. However, the Illusion Fish clan attached great importance to inheritance and revered their ancestors. Do you think we should report this matter to the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? It was still unknown whether the player clan was strong enough to rival the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. In fact, it was also unknown whether the player clan would challenge the Underworld Chamber of Commerce's position. Everything was just their speculation. In short, if our Illusion Fish clan is destroyed, you, little brat, will be the biggest sinner. Who asked you to make this suggestion? The Illusion Fish clan leader couldn't help but scold. This truth had truly shocked them, and they were unable to extricate themselves for a long time. Just as the elders had said, the Illusion Fish clan attached great importance to inheritance and ancestors. That was how the current Illusion Fish clan came to be. Upon hearing this, the Illusion Fish clan leader glanced at everyone present. In the main city of the player clan, the Empress wasn't the ruler. She was merely living under the player clan's roof. Upon hearing this, Oates had a bitter look on his face. Our Illusion Fish clan fears the Underworld Chamber of Commerce because they are too powerful. Our clan doesn't have the ability to go against them. However, if we have a force that can go against them, we have nothing to fear. One of the elders said. This was the reason why the 9 branches of the Illusion Fish clan were able to unite as one and never split up due to problems with the distribution of benefits. This was because they had the same ancestor and the same bloodline. In fact, he knew very well that these elders weren't confident in their decision. Upon hearing this, the Illusion Fish clan leader and the elders present couldn't help but nod. If their Illusion Fish clan made such a huge decision just because the Empress was with the player clan, it would be a little ridiculous and willful. However, looking at the serious faces of everyone present, he knew that this decision wasn't a joke. It was their true opinion. Although the Illusion Fish clan was extremely cruel during the struggle for supremacy in the sea and had never shown mercy to other clans, the Illusion Fish clan had never shown mercy to other clans. That's all? Don't you have any other ideas? Actually, I have another thought. That is, the Empress is standing with the player clan. Our Illusion Fish clan has always revered our ancestors. When the Nethersea Empress was on the throne, she was cruel, but our Illusion Fish clan is greatly indebted to her. That's why our ancestors are loyal to her. If it weren't for her, our Illusion Fish clan wouldn't be where we are today. This is also the reason why our clan has always worshipped her with the ceremony of worshipping our ancestors. Why aren't you standing with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? What's your reason? The Illusion Fish clan leader asked immediately. If the Illusion Fish clan was destroyed because of his decision, he would be the sinner of the clan. Upon hearing this, a smile appeared on the Illusion Fish clan leader's face. Clan leader, you're really willful. Sitting at the side, Oatesmy looked at the clan leader and said softly. His words were shocking. Oatesmy's words shocked everyone present. Is that what all of you think? Looking at the 9 elders nodding, the Illusion Fish clan leader was slightly surprised. I've been to the main city of the player clan, so I think the player clan definitely has the strength to fight the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Most importantly, facing such a powerful player clan, The Underworld Chamber of Commerce won't be able to compete with the player clan unless they mobilize all their forces in the Central Sea region. However, if the Underworld Chamber of Commerce really does so, they will lose a lot of benefits in the Central Sea region where the top forces are fighting. After all, if the Underworld Chamber of Commerce's strongest force leaves the Central Sea region, the other top forces in the Central Sea region won't sit still. So, the Underworld Chamber of Commerce will definitely have a headache thinking about how to fight the player clan. After leaving the ancestral worship hall, Oatsmai and the others gathered in the palace again. Their expressions were extremely solemn. Hearing this, no one dared to speak their mind. Hearing this, the Illusion Fish clan leader nodded and looked at Oatsmai. After pondering for a while, Oatsmai said, "Little brat, what do you think? You're about to become the clan leader. Tell me your opinion." At this moment, the Illusion Fish clan leader turned to look at Oatsmai. Oats nodded. "I'm just mentioning it. Isn't it up to you to decide the specifics?" Oatsmai argued softly. "It's all because of your suggestion." The Illusion Fish clan leader couldn't help but glare. However, as the clan leader said, he was about to succeed as the clan leader. It was time for him to have his own thoughts and opinions. Otherwise, how could he lead the clan to continue standing in this sea region in the future? Oatsmai's first two opinions were analyzed well, but not all of them were correct. However, his last sentence moved everyone present. Chapter 606. The players would never have imagined the huge impact of a single moment of acting cool. The news that Yen Mai brought back shocked the higher-ups of the Illusion Fish clan, and they made a far-reaching decision. Then, the Illusion Fish clan began their race relocation plan. During this period, the players' attention was attracted by a major event that happened in the land of Sanluo. The battle with the Corpse clan had lasted for half a year, during which the players developed rapidly by utilizing the Corpse clan's resources. Many players fell in love with the daily activity of moving corpses in the land of Sanluo to level up and earn money. This led to the development of many life professions. The players had gained a lot from this battle. As usual, a large number of players departed for the land of Sanluo after purchasing their necessities at the Mansion of the Dead. However, there was a huge change in the land of Sanluo. The Land of Death, which bordered the land of Sanluo, launched an attack on the land of Sanluo. At this moment, the west side of the land of Sanluo was filled with ghouls, skeletal dragons, liches, headless horsemen, and other creatures, completely occupying the west side of the land of Sanluo. The Corpse clan was extremely nervous about the sudden invasion of the Land of Death. Mei Ba personally gathered all the members of the Corpse clan to prepare for the battle in the Nether City, the center of the land of Sanluo. If it was in the past, Mei Ba would not be afraid of the invasion of the Land of Death when the 3 Corpse Emperors were around. Although the invasion of the Land of Death had weakened the Nether clan, the Corpse clan was completely different from the Nether clan in Mei Ba's eyes. The Corpse clan would only grow stronger as they fought. Under the strategy of using war to nurture war, the evenly matched enemies would eventually fall and become nutrients for the Corpse clan's rise. However, it was different this time. The harassment from the player clan in the north had lasted for half a year, so the Corpse clan was in an extremely difficult situation. Moreover, the player clan was completely different from the enemies they had encountered before. The players would turn into nothingness after they died, so the Corpse clan's greatest advantage could not be utilized at all. Using war to nurture war was just empty talk. In such a war of attrition, they were losing clansmen every day. However, they still did not dare to attack Beiki at this stage. Instead, they focused all their energy on repairing Hidorigami's body and waiting for her to wake up. During this period, the Corpse clan chose to invade the surrounding areas of Sanluo at the same time to plunder a large number of corpses to replenish their losses from fighting the player clan. What Mei Ba hadn't expected was for the Land of Death to suddenly attack at this time. Last time, the rival of the Death Realm had changed the Sanluo realm. The old overlord Nether race had stepped down from the throne and created the current Corpse race. But this time, Mei Ba would not let the same thing happen again. She was ready to fight. At this moment, in the ruined Nether City, corpse race armies were coming from all directions. In just a few days, Nether City was filled with corpse race warriors. After reorganizing the army, Mei-Ba, who was standing at the peak of the mountain of corpses, coldly said, "All members above the corpse general level, get on the corpse mountain. I have something important to tell you. Under the strict ranking system and military discipline of the corpse race, even without the two corpse emperors, Chi-Ba and Lai-Ba, they were still loyal to the only corpse emperor, Mei-Ba. They did not have any thoughts of betrayal. At this moment, when they heard the summons, they did not dare to be negligent. The leaders of the corpse race army turned around decisively and rushed toward the center of the corpse mountain. The corpse race's recent actions had puzzled the players who didn't know what was going on. In the past, it was easy to find corpse race warriors in the Sanluo realm. They just had to go to a few resource points, and there would be corpse race warriors guarding them. But now, the resource points of the Sanluo realm were empty. There was nothing left. The brick-moving players felt extremely complicated. They felt that their source of income had been cut off. They were so angry. In the end, they could only go deeper and head toward the main city of the corpse race, Nether City. The players who came in small groups of 2s and 3s were not surprised. Faced with the corpse race army, they could only be tortured. While the players were gloomily discussing the abnormality of the Sanluo realm in the forum, Lu Wu also noticed the changes in the Sanluo realm. At this moment, he decisively used the artifact to check on the situation in the Sanluo realm. After discovering the invading forces of the Death Realm, he decided to investigate the Death Realm as well. After this investigation, Lu Wu could not stay calm. Originally, he was watching the battle between the top forces of the two regions with the attitude of a spectator. After all, who was destroyed by whom had nothing to do with him. However, after investigating the Death Realm, Lu Wu immediately changed his mind. He knew that he had to intervene in this matter. The reason was simple. The forces that controlled the Death Realm now were not from the underworld. The so-called ghoul army of the Death Realm did not come from the Death Realm, but something from the outside. During his investigation, Lu Wu discovered that there was an extremely well-hidden teleportation portal in the depths of the Death Abyss in the center of the Death Realm. These ghouls and other creatures all came from within the portal. After investigating the Midland, Lu Wu was shocked to discover that the native creatures of the Death Realm had long been extinct. Now, the creatures that ruled the Death Realm were all foreign creatures. In order to find out the specific reason, Lu Wu decisively looked for the perpetual zero motion machine and asked her to investigate who built this teleportation portal. Lil Bei Li did not pay much attention to Lu Wu's request at first. However, when she saw the teleportation portal, her expression suddenly became extremely serious. After that, under Lil Bei Li's control, the artifact passed through the teleportation portal and arrived at the other side. What appeared in front of Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li was a completely unfamiliar world. Through the detection of the artifact, they discovered that this was a planet outside of the three realms. This undoubtedly stunned Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li. However, since they were already here, they had to find out why there was a teleportation portal on this planet that led directly to the western underworld, the Death Realm. During the follow-up investigation, Lu Wu and Lil Bei Li discovered that there was a huge city near the teleportation portal. The entire city was divided into 12 regions, and a huge formation was carved in the center of each region. From time to time, dead creatures would be pieced together from the formation and controlled to walk out of the city along a fixed route towards the teleportation portal that led to the Death Realm. The people who lived in this city were all descendants of immortals from the Heaven Realm. During the follow-up investigation, Lu Wu was even more shocked to find out that this was a processing area for ghouls. The 12 regions and 12 formations in the city represented 12 different kinds of dead creatures. The descendants of immortals from the Heaven Realm who lived here used the creatures of the underworld as the blueprint and used the method of the zombie forger to create new creatures with the characteristics of the underworld creatures. Then they were continuously released into the death realm. As for the purpose, Lu Wu could easily figure it out with his toes. It must be a way for the heaven realm to curb the development of the underworld. They created a new creature with the characteristics of the underworld creatures to deceive the emperor of the underworld. Then they released this creature into the underworld to weaken the overall strength of the underworld. Shameless. This is 2F** King Shameless. Lu Wu couldn't help but curse when he saw this scene. After understanding the history of the rise of the Corpse Clan, Lu Wu was still very confused as to why the Netherworld clan would be invaded by the forces of the Death Realm and completely weakened. If it was a normal power struggle in the underworld, he would find it very normal. However, there was a big doubt in this battle. The overall strength of the forces of the Death Realm and the Netherworld clan was not much different. In fact, the Netherworld clan seemed to be slightly stronger. So, where did the forces of the Death Realm get the courage to attack the land of Sanluo? In the end, they even forced the Netherworld clan to summon all the living forces of the Land of Death to fight back? Would the forces of the Death Realm have it easy after this battle? In comparison, the land of Sanluo's war against the 9 luminaries was very wise. First, he understood the situation of the land of the 9 luminaries in detail. Then he led his army to attack the land of the 9 luminaries when it was at its weakest and conquered the land of the 9 luminaries. In comparison, the realm of Death's approach was completely different. When the Netherworld race was at its peak, they even had demigod experts. In Lu Wu's opinion, this kind of behavior was beyond stupid. In the end, not only did he not get a piece of land in the land of Sanluo, but he also returned like a loser. The ending could be said to be a lose-lose situation. Although Lu Wu was puzzled at the time, he did not think much of it. What if the ruler of the Land of Death was a retard? But now, Lu Wu finally understood the reason. How was this stupidity? It was completely a move that the heavenly realm had planted to contain the underworld. From the existence of Tsangshu to the Heavenly Strategies Bureau, to the teleportation gate in the Land of Death, Lu Wu could not imagine how many backup plans the Heaven Realm had left behind. Thinking about it, it made sense. The underworld was different from the human realm, which had no spiritual energy at all. How could the Heaven Realm be at ease to let the underworld develop? Even if the underworld had become a world where the strong preyed on the weak, it was obvious that the Heaven Realm still hadn't let down its guard. After discovering such a huge secret, Lu Wu, who was originally prepared to watch the show, could not sit still anymore. Originally, the confrontation between the forces of the underworld had always been a process of survival of the fittest. In the end, one side would be weakened, while the other side would become stronger. However, it was different now. The creatures in the Land of Death were created to contain the development of the underworld. Their existence would bring immeasurable damage to the underworld. The Netherworld race was an example. At that time, the Sanluo Netherworld race was a force with demigod experts. It was considered an extremely powerful force, even in all the big regions. No one expected that it would fall under the schemes of the Heaven Realm. After knowing the specific reason, how could Lu Wu sit still anymore? He immediately began to discuss countermeasures with Lil Bei Li. Originally, Lu Wu wanted to help the corpse race repel these external forces, but Lil Bei Li proposed her own idea. Her idea was very simple: to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Repelling them would not solve anything. If they continued to eliminate this extraterrestrial kingdom that was constantly producing ghouls, there would be more ghouls in the future. In response to Lil Bei Li's suggestion, Lu Wu pondered for a moment and nodded. This time, in order to avoid any accidents, he decided to personally lead the player clan to the extraterrestrial kingdom and cover the planet with the absolute safety of the artifact. However, before he went, Lu Wu carefully investigated the situation of the planet again, even the depths of the underground. During the investigation, Lu Wu was pleasantly surprised to find that there was a teleportation circle deep under the city, and the materials used for the fusion of ghouls were continuously transported from this teleportation circle. At this moment, Lu Wu had an idea. If he killed all the descendants of the Heaven Realm and left none alive, as long as the news did not leak out, then the endless supply of materials would belong to him. Then he could use the materials provided by the Heaven Realm to nurture his Calamity Army. Wouldn't that be great? Chapter 607. After thoroughly investigating the planet, Lu Wu decisively made a server-wide announcement. Server-wide announcement. The interdimensional expedition will begin in 2 hours. The destination is the Outer Realm, Jade Split Star. Players, please make preparations to enter the interdimensional expedition. You may register to participate in the event interface. Server-wide notification. The theme of the cross-border battle this time is Invasion of the Extraterrestrial Demons. You will be participating in the battle in a new form. At the same time, you will have access to the shop. Since Lu Wu was going there personally this time, he opened up the function of using the shop in the Outer Realm. As the war between the Corpse Clan and the external forces of the Land of Death was about to break out, Lu Wu was ready to attack them and cut off their roots. With the appearance of the server-wide announcement, the players of all 5 servers began to nervously prepare. Now that the major servers were in a state of intense competition, they naturally did not want to miss out on the opportunity to obtain large amounts of rewards. This news quickly spread from within the game to outside of the game. Lao Wang, hurry up and go online. The cross-border battle has begun. The guild is gathering people. What? If you want to go to work, hurry up and ask for leave. Your salary will be paid soon. Hurry up and come back. Old Lee, don't you know about the cross-border battle? What do you mean my girlfriend is angry? F***CKU. Hurry up and get online. Hey, boss, I broke my leg when I went downstairs just now. I need to take a leave to rest. A player who gritted his teeth and rolled down the stairs. Leader, there's an emergency at home. My wife gave birth. Yes, she gave birth again. Maybe she'll give birth again next time. In order to participate in this cross-border war, the busy players in the real world gave many reasons. Of course, there were also those who were seen through. For example, if the boss was a Battle Royale player, they would know exactly what their employees were trying to do. When they exposed their employees on the spot, the situation would be extremely awkward. Of course, some players would quibble at this moment. What war? I've never played it before. I don't understand the cross-border war you're talking about. Soon, a large number of players came online, opened the event interface, and signed up for this cross-border battle. The existence of guilds in the game played a huge role at this time. Every small group would have someone contact their subordinates to inform them of urgent matters. Thanks to the efforts of these people, the number of online players continued to soar, and it was the same for all the servers. As time went by, Lu Wu's shop had sold a large amount of resources and earned a lot of soul coins. However, Lu Wu knew that the real profit was yet to come. When the allotted time for registration was over, a full server announcement sounded. Frowny face, server-wide announcement. Cross-border teleportation activated. Countdown 10, 9, 8, 7. At the same time that all the registered players disappeared, Lu Wu also crossed the portal with the artifact, leaving only Lil Bailey, who was wearing the accessory ring, in the 3 realms to protect the players who did not go to the Outland. Outer space, Jade Split Star. Under the scorching sun, water was scarce on the surface of the planet. It was reasonable to say that in such an environment it was extremely difficult for living things to exist. However, on the dark side of the planet stood a magnificent city. At this moment, the descendants of immortals in the city were all busy transporting spirit materials from the central underground passage to the 12 areas where the ghouls were being refined, providing them with an endless supply of resources. Right now, in a building at the center of the city, a demigod powerhouse was staring at the soul mirror that was floating in front of him with a smile on his face. What appeared in the mirror was the Ghoul Corpse Legion that was advancing towards the center of the Sanluo region. With the support of the Heaven Realm, this plan was simply flawless in the eyes of Black Desert. It was too perfect. The Sunluo netherworld race, which had been powerful for a time, was destroyed under this plan. Now, the Corpse Clan would repeat the same mistake. Xian Mo was full of confidence about this. Up until now, this plan had only failed once, and it had never happened again. That time, the first teleportation point they created led to the depths of the Void Ocean. At that time, they spent a lot of resources to build the Death Lord, hoping that it would set off a bloodbath in the ocean. The early stage of the plan was going smoothly. Under the leadership of the Death Lord, the Mute Empire fell apart and eventually headed towards destruction. However, what he did not expect was that the Death Lord had its own ideas and began to resist his control. At that time, he did not dare to go to the underworld himself, and he was helpless against the betrayal of the Death Lord. In the end, he could only let go. After that, he followed the requirements of his superiors and changed the method of building the Ghoul Corpse Legion. The subsequent version was the Ghoul Corpse Legion, which was now extremely easy to control. Until now, there were no more mistakes. Looking at the Ghoul Corpse Legion fighting with the Corpse Clan on the screen, Xian Mo laughed loudly. The feeling of watching one's own toy fight with a potential enemy from behind the scenes was great. At this moment, a flurry of footsteps came from outside. Hearing this, Xian Mo immediately turned his head to look. At this moment, a man ran into the hall with an anxious look on his face. He looked extremely flustered. "Master, this is bad. An extraterrestrial force is invading." Hearing this, Xian Mo, who was originally looking relaxed, suddenly stood up, looking very surprised. This Jade Smite planet was a planet with an extreme lack of resources. Logically, no extraterrestrial force would covet it. Therefore, when he heard this, he was very confused. "Master, what should we do?" The disciple asked anxiously again. "Let's go out and take a look." After saying this, Xian Mo immediately turned into a stream of light and rushed out of the palace. When he came out of the palace and saw the scene outside, Xian Mo was instantly dumbfounded. Densely packed humanoid creatures descended from the sky. Their bodies were pitch black, and they had a single horn on their heads. They were creatures that he had never seen before. As far as the eye could see, the sky was covered by these figures. For a moment, Xian Mo was stunned. At the same time, a game notification rang in the head of the player who had descended from the sky. Game notification. The form used for this cross-border battle is the Sky Demon form. Cross-border battle reward description. The battle reward for this cross-border battle will be calculated based on the damage done by the player and the number of enemies killed. At the same time, the server ranking reward will be given based on the total battle reward of the server. Hearing the game notification, the players were extremely excited and shouted in the live chat channel. The mission is actually to destroy buildings. 666. I love destroying things the most. Since it's to demolish houses, why is it called Sky Demon? It's better to call it the Husky Army. Ha ha ha. The Bakey Army is the best in the world, war. 2nd Battalion Commander. Where's the F** King Italian cannon? Blow this place up. Amidst the noise, the players descended. After landing, they did not waste any time and started to destroy decisively. The houses, buildings, and the descendants of the immortals were not spared. Under the horrified gazes of these busy descendants of the mortals, the natural disaster descended and the great destruction began. In just a moment, the 12 districts of the city were filled with the figures of the players. At this moment, the ghouls that emerged from the formation also became the targets of the players' attacks. They looked ferocious and terrifying, but they were not a threat to the players. As long as killing them could earn merit, they could beat them up. Seeing this scene, Xian Mo's heart was bleeding. Although the materials used to build this city were provided by the Heaven Realm, he had also put in a lot of effort for it. Studying the modification of the ghouls also consumed a lot of his energy. Now that he saw such destruction, how could he bear it? He immediately rushed toward the players with a roar. At this moment, a figure stood in front of him and blocked his way. This person's body was glowing with a faint golden light. His face was shrouded in a blur, and his appearance could not be seen at all. This person was Lu Wu, who had descended with the players. At the same time he appeared, the game notification rang in the players' minds. Server announcement. The NPC participating in this cross-border war is Slayer. Of course, Lu Wu was not really Slayer. Instead, he was referring to the first emperor, Slayer. Thinking of the time when Slayer led the human race to cause trouble in the extraterrestrial world, it seemed to be very similar to him at this moment. That was why Lu Wu had the idea to borrow Slayer's name. Who are you? Looking at Lu Wu, who stood in front of him, Xian Mo asked in a deep voice. Dong Huang Tai's father. Lu Wu said with a smile. Although he only had the combat power of a ghost emperor, he had cultivated the emperor's mirror. Therefore, Lu Wu was full of confidence when facing Xian Mo, who was in the demigod realm. Moreover, this place was covered by the absolute safety of the artifact, so he did not have to worry about his own safety at all. How could a demigod god find the location of a divine artifact? Looking at Lu Wu, who was provoking him, Xian Mo's face was extremely gloomy. He immediately waved his hand, and a formation appeared under Lu Wu's feet, forming a boundary and trapping him inside. Upon seeing this, Lu Wu waved his hand and shattered the newly formed barrier layer. Then he dashed toward the black desert. Lu Wu was a little excited as it was his first head-on battle. After hiding for 3 years, it was time to show off. Facing Lu Wu, who was approaching, Xian Mo suddenly dodged Lu Wu's attack. He then grabbed Lu Wu's fist and slammed it to the ground. Boom! The ground shook and a deep pit was formed. Amidst the smoke and dust, Lu Wu raised his head and found that Xian Mo's figure had appeared in front of him. Xian Mo punched his head and hammered him into the ground again. Before Lu Wu could recover, he was greeted by Xian Mo's frenzied attack. At this time, in the live chat channel of the 5 servers, "Hey brothers, did you see that? The new NPC is being beaten up by the enemy. Damn, why is this NPC so weak? Should we go and help? Help my ass, hurry up and dismantle it. Look at those idiots in the server, they're all crazy. Don't let them steal the first place in the cross-server battle. Look at those idiots in the Naraka server, they're really bombing everywhere with Italian cannons. I'm going to report them for cheating." At this moment, Lu Wu, who was full of confidence, was pressed to the ground by Xian Mo and was completely dumbfounded. "Didn't you say that it was my turn to show off?" Every time Lu Wu attacked, Xian Mo would see through him. After he dodged, Lu Wu would be greeted with a series of punches on his face. In this one-sided battle, Lu Wu was pressed to the ground and could not get up at all. Fortunately, there was a steady flow of soul power into his body, constantly healing his injuries. Lu Wu was always at full health. Players needed to buy potions from the shop to recover their health. But Lu Wu did not need to go through that step. He could directly withdraw soul coins from the inventory. It was equivalent to using a cheat-like bloodlock. Therefore, his injuries were as good as nothing to him. But he still felt so King aggrieved. Where are those idiot players? Didn't they come to help when they saw me getting beaten up? CK, you bastard. How dare you kick my face? When you're exhausted, I'll smash your head. Chapter 608. Outer Space, Jade Split Star. This city that had stood tall for a long time had finally ushered in its most glorious moment. Explosions, shouts, and wild laughter filled the air. The destruction continued. At this moment, the player's mood could only be described with one word: awesome. Every time they destroyed a building, the notification of damage value plus N appeared in their minds, as well as the corresponding battle achievements, which gave the players endless motivation. However, while the players were having fun, someone was extremely unhappy. According to Lu Wu's script, he appeared after cultivating the Emperor's mirror and slaughtered everything in his path, establishing an image of an Iron Man as the god of war in the hearts of the players. Amidst the exclamations of "this NPC is awesome," He stood proudly in the sky with his hands behind his back. However, the reality was so cruel that Lu Wu could not breathe. Not only did he fail to kill anyone, but he was also beaten up so badly that he could not even stand up. Looking at Xian Mo, who was casting immortal spells and kicking him from time to time, Lu Wu gnashed his teeth in hatred. This is so embarrassing. There are so many people watching. Lu Wu, who was unwilling to give up, immediately tried to get up again. At this moment, Xian Mo's figure suddenly appeared in front of him and kicked his face again, pushing his head into the ground. Immediately after, he cast immortal spells and countless spiritual swords, cruelly piercing through Lu Wu's body. Lu Wu was speechless. Although all of Lu Wu's injuries would recover in less than a second, it was really painful. The players had a pain shielding system, but I didn't make one for myself. In fact, Lu Wu's previous confidence came from the many cross-level battles he had seen, such as Ao, Jian, Little Pomelo, Murphy, and even the talisman treasure of Rashu, who could kill the gods of the heaven realm at the demigod level. But why couldn't he do it? He had cultivated the most powerful Emperor's Mirror. According to the plot of the novel, cross-level battles were as easy as eating and drinking. Why couldn't he beat him? In fact, Bei Li had told Lu Wu before he led the players across the border. Battle skills needed to be honed over a long period of time, and they could only be improved through repeated battles. Therefore, one had to be mentally prepared when fighting someone for the first time. Her words came true on the spot. Lu Wu rolled in the air without any technique and waved his fists randomly. He was completely like a noob on the battlefield. Apart from being able to take some hits and shouting a little louder, there was nothing special about him. Lu Wu, who was unwilling to give up, jumped up from the ground with a loud roar. He waved his fists and rushed toward Xian Mo, seeing Lu Wu rushing towards him. Xian Mo's heart was filled with shock. In fact, in his opinion, Lu Wu's fighting style was too straightforward. Not only did he not have any hidden moves, but he was also full of flaws. He was just like a sandbag, but that was also the scariest part. He was really a punching bag. It was completely unkillable. At first, Xian Mo thought that this person had a special physique and was more resistant. As long as he continued attacking like this, his body would definitely not be able to withstand it. But gradually he didn't think so. Looking at Lu Wu, who was still full of energy, Xian Mo felt a little tired, but he still lifted his leg and kicked Lu Wu back to the ground. "I won't tire you to death. Ow." After falling to the ground, Lu Wu stood up angrily and rushed towards Xian Mo, seeing this scene. Xian Mo's expression was extremely ugly. After dodging Lu Wu's attack, he grabbed his neck and swooped down with him. He pressed Lu Wu's head to the ground, creating a ditch that was thousands of meters long, really rubbing the ground. Some of the players who were observing the new NPC saw this scene and grimaced in pain. They subconsciously felt pain for Lu Wu. At this moment in the live chat channel, that NPC is so pitiful. Do you really not want to help? I don't want to admit it, but this NPC is really embarrassing. He's a disgrace to us, the Natural Disaster Guild. What's wrong with the stupid officials? Why do they send such a weak NPC? Increase the difficulty? You guys know nothing. This NPC was probably sent to take the hits, which means to attract the firepower. Do you know what a main tank is? That's it. That's right. So let's continue to destroy. Don't worry about him. Can't you see that he's been beaten to this state? He's still alive and kicking, so it's not a big problem. Lu Wu, who was eavesdropping on the players' conversation in the live chat channel, was confused. Is this why you guys are so righteous and don't want to help? Can't you see that I'm in such a pitiful state? The furious Lu Wu began to struggle, ready to teach Xian Mo a lesson. He did a carp flip on the spot. Plop, plop, plop. However, Xian Mo was unmoved. He grabbed Lu Wu's neck and continued to plow the ground. After struggling for a while, Lu Wu gave up. I'm in trouble. At this moment, Xian Mo suddenly stopped and kicked Lu Wu in the face again. His body rose into the air, and then he looked at the city that was still being destroyed by the players. At this moment, he was anxious and did not want to waste any more time on Lu Wu. He immediately turned around and was ready to rush toward the group of players. Seeing this, Lu Wu leaped up with a howl and rushed toward Xian Mo. "Although I'm really weak, there's no way you can bully my brats." Xian Mo, who was hugged by his thigh, shook his body. A golden light appeared on the surface of his body and shook off Lu Wu's arms. Then he kicked Lu Wu away again. Ow! At this moment, Lu Wu had given up on his dignity, and he did not want to act tough anymore. At this moment, he just wanted to tire this bastard to death. He grabbed Xian Mo again without any attitude. "Get lost!" The furious Xian Mo grabbed Lu Wu and punched his head. Lu Wu was in great pain, but he felt that he could still take it. He refused to let go and was determined to tire this bastard to death. Looking at the unkillable Lu Wu, Xian Mo was about to explode. His fists turned into golden light and fell like raindrops, continuously hammering Lu Wu's body. Lu Wu actually wanted to persevere, but in the end he still let out a scream. The group of players was speechless. At this moment, they only wanted to say that this NPC was really embarrassing. Compared to E, who could continue to fight even without a head in the previous Crossworld battle, and this guy who was obviously very meaty and whose skin was not even broken, but was still screaming, the players could not help but cover their faces. How could the stupid officials send such a shameful thing? Under the attack of the speed of light, Lu Wu's head turned into a phantom, swaying back and forth. That was really painful. However, no matter how fast Xian Mo's fists were, he could not keep up with Lu Wu's Krypton gold recovery. Other than the pain, it was useless to Lu Wu. Feeling that Xian Mo's fists were getting slower and slower, Lu Wu felt that the opportunity to counterattack was coming. At this moment, his expression gradually became ferocious. At this moment, Xian Mo suddenly stopped attacking and smashed Lu Wu into the ground with a heavy punch. Then, with both of his hands facing down, he roared and a huge shockwave of the immortal spell crashed down. Boom! The ground shook violently and a bottomless pit appeared below. Lu Wu, who was smashed deep into the ground, had already given up struggling and quietly crawled out of the pit. Up until now, he was basically buried in the ground, so he just had to get used to it. Lu Wu comforted himself. At this moment, Xian Mo, who was panting, once again turned his head to look at the devastated city, ready to go and help. Aha! At this moment, Lu Wu leaped out of the deep pit, and with an arrogant face, he pounced at him again and again. Xian Mo immediately pulled a long face, feeling that he was about to have a mental breakdown, but he could only passively face it. At this moment, Lu Wu only had one thought in his mind. "You can destroy my body, but you can't defeat my steel-like spirit. Although I can't beat you, I can King exhaust you to death." Lu Sun said that no matter what method it was, as long as it could defeat the opponent, it was a good method. Even if it was embarrassing, Xian Mo's expression turned numb as he faced Lu Wu, who was repeatedly hammered into the ground and recovered to full health and status time after time. Lu Wu pounced at him with a loud aha. Although his methods were extremely cruel, his opponent could not be hurt at all, let alone killed. At this moment, the city was still being destroyed, and his heart was bleeding. The spiritual power in his body gradually weakened under such intense consumption, but his opponent was still full of vigor. Xian Mo no longer knew how to continue fighting. Little Bei Li's 18 moves, strangle throat. Looking at Xian Mo, who was getting slower and slower, Lu Wu finally seized the opportunity. Suddenly, he pounced on Xian Mo, skillfully moved to his back, and strangled his neck. He used to think that Little Bei Li's move was extremely lethal. Now that he was using it, Lu Wu could only describe it as delicious. Looking at Xian Mo, whose resistance was not as strong as his, Lu Wu sentenced him to death. Roar! At this moment, Xian Mo's eyes were bloodshot, and he struggled with all his might. Roar your ass! Lu Wu immediately smashed his head on the back of Xian Mo's head. This was also the head hammer strike that he learned from little Bei. Li, let go! Bam! Lu Wu smashed his head on the back of Xian Mo's head again. Bam! 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 Lu Wu continuously shook his head, using his head as a hammer. He used the method of exchanging injury for injury, attacking Xian Mo both physically and mentally. The players who witnessed this scene were all dumbfounded. This NPC is Cruel Destroyer. Looks like he's going to win. It's undoubtedly the way children fight. My brother fought with someone like this yesterday. I saw it with my own eyes. Covering face, that's awesome. He can actually fight back after enduring an hour of violent beating. This NPC's health must be huge. The players who witnessed this scene could not help but laugh. Although they were on the battlefield, they could not help but laugh. Facing Lu Wu's head hammer that was like a pile driver, Xian Mo was dizzy, and his heart was filled with grief and indignation. Roar! Eat my hammer! Lu Wu shouted as he violently swung his head again. At this moment, Xian Mo's body suddenly shone with a golden light. He released all the spiritual power that he had just recovered and sent Lu Wu flying. Then he turned around and swung his fist at Lu Wu. The fist mark formed by the spiritual power brought Lu Wu to the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, Lu Wu returned to the pitch-black depths of the underground. However, Lu Wu was very calm and skillfully began to climb out of the pit. This guy won't be able to struggle for long. I'm going to win. However, when he climbed out of the deep pit, he found that Xian Mo was surrounded by nearly 100 people in the sky. They were the wall players from each server, and now they had finally made their move. Brother, have a cigarette. You've worked hard. Don't go and embarrass yourself. At this moment, a voice came from the side. Lu Wu turned his head and saw that it was the dog beside him. At this moment, he extended his paw and handed him a cigarette. Stunned, he took the cigarette and lit it with the help of the dog. Lu Wu looked at the sky, then at the dog who was sitting at the side with a relaxed expression. He subconsciously took a puff of the cigarette, and his mood suddenly became extremely complicated. Obviously, he did not act well. Chapter 609. Since the wall scammers had already appeared, Lu Wu did not plan to go up again. Xian Mo was already at the end of his tether. The spiritual power in his body was completely depleted, and he could no longer cause any trouble. Shamefully, Lu Wu did it, draining his blue bar dry. Looking at the dog beside him, who was also very satisfied, Lu Wu asked in surprise, "Dog, aren't you going to heal me?" "Boss just asked me to heal you. But when I tried to heal you, the game prompted that you were at full health and couldn't be healed. You're really good at taking a beating." Looking at the dog's kind eyes, Lu Wu felt that it was full of malice. "What do you mean by good at taking a beating?" "I'm your father behind the scenes, the real boss." "Not bad, don't be discouraged. Although it's a little embarrassing." The dog stood up and came to Lu Wu's side. He patted his shoulder and comforted him. Lu Wu was speechless. Did this kid have too many soul coins? At this moment, Lu Wu suddenly looked up at the sky. The battle in the sky had begun. This time, the wall scammers from all the big servers had gathered here to fight the enemy together. Although they were usually competitors, they were all on the same side when it came to cross-border battles like this. They were all on the same side. Although they were no match for a demigod powerhouse with their combined strength, the demigod was obviously not doing well at the moment. No one was sure if they could kill a god, but who would be satisfied if they did not give it a try? After all, as long as they succeeded, the rewards would be unimaginable. At this moment, Yuan Fong suddenly turned his head and nodded at Lu Chai. Seeing this, Lu Chai nodded as well. He immediately reached out to grab Yuan Fong's collar and threw him towards Xian Mo, facing Yuan Fong. Although Xian Mo had no spiritual power to use, he still threw a punch at him. The physical strength of a demigod powerhouse had reached an extremely terrifying level. Before Yuan Fong's body could come into contact with the fist, he was torn into pieces by the violent fist wind and turned into a black fog that dissipated on the spot. Everyone was speechless. At this moment, Yuan Fong had become a water-testing stone before the battle. After all, if Yuan Fong could not withstand the attack, he would not be of any use in the battle. This was also Yuan Fong's own request. Clearly, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Even with Yuan Fong's powerful defense, he still couldn't withstand a single punch from Xian Mo. He's so strong. It seems like we can't come into contact with him. Little Pomelo said weakly. Let's begin. Let's try to break his defense. At this time, Black Lily's cold voice rang in the live chat channel. Then, everyone heard the sound of bullets being loaded. Bang! A spinning blue bullet drew out 2 spiraling streams of mist, fiercely striking Xian Mo's head. However, Xian Mo's head was only slightly crooked. He didn't suffer much damage. However, this strike was like the starting gun of the battle. Everyone present immediately began to display their abilities. Ao Jian's 9 spirits, sword formation. 7 ranked nether ghost hunters. Gu Yu's demonic god power. Hu He's zombie spirits array. Yi Sherwin's cursed words, pig transformation. Turn into a pig. Become a pig. Chara's ancestral leopard's power. North Star One Blade's abyss slash. Lionheart's death charge. The infinite firepower of Ari. Night Godland's force of nature. Wait a minute. At this moment, the wall cheaters directly used their strongest moves and threw all of them at Xian Mo. Under such a violent attack, Xian Mo was slowly being pressed down from the sky. However, what shocked the wall cheaters was that even so, there were no wounds on Xian Mo's body. These attacks that hit his body were like tickles. The damage they caused was even more negligible. In the face of absolute physical defense, everyone realized the difference in the form of power. Charge! At this time, Lionheart roared angrily. He fiercely patted the winged flying dragon beneath him and turned into a black phantom, fiercely colliding with Xian Mo's body. This collision only caused Xian Mo's body to fall. However, Lionheart lost more than half of his HP. Facing such a strong opponent, not only did the wall cheaters not retreat, but they also became excited. As Xian Mo's body fell, 2 figures appear behind him. They were Murphy and Little Pomelo. They joined hands to stab Xian Mo's back at the same time. Suddenly, shadow runes appeared on Xian Mo's forehead. He could not help but let out a muffled groan and immediately reached out to grab his back. At this time, Murphy and Little Pomelo held hands, and at the same time disappeared on the spot, entering stealth mode. Seeing that Murphy and Little Pomelo actually broke through the defense, the players were very excited and put in more effort to attack. Among the wall cheaters, the only thing that did not work was constantly muttering to Xian Mo, "Turn into a pig! Turn into a pig!" Yi Sherwin turned into a pig. Although the shadow force penetrated the surface defense of Xian Mo's body, the power of his curse could not do it. Boom! At this time, Xian Mo's body hit the ground. What followed was a sword formation that firmly locked Xian Mo's surroundings. Sharp sword aura spread out and began to cut Xian Mo's body. At this time, the demon ghost also appeared. Countless ghosts wrapped around the surface of Xian Mo's body, trying to lock him in place. Xian Mo was about to resist, but at this time, Guyu flew in front of him and looked at him with his crimson eyes. Suddenly, countless negative emotions surged in his mind, and for a moment he was stunned on the spot. Everyone quickly seized this opportunity and began to attack again in a frenzy. Although the effect of their attacks was negligible, at least they could break through the defense, and there was still hope to kill him. With Night Goddess Land's song, everyone's attributes were enhanced, and their attacks became fiercer. However, at this time, Xian Mo's eyes regained clarity. He suddenly raised his head and let out a roar. Without the activation of spiritual power, the violent sound wave blasted everyone away, and even the sword formation and the demon ghost were broken. Did you see that? A starving camel is still bigger than an ant. After all, he is a demigod powerhouse. and the strongest among us is only a ghost king. We are several levels apart. Sun Qi looked at Lu Wu and sighed. So why didn't you help? Lu Wu was stunned. Boss asked me to take care of you. Do I look like I need to be taken care of? Lu Wu said impatiently. It's useless even if I go. They don't need healing, and they will die if they touch them. It's so difficult. Sun Qi said as he squatted on the ground, holding his chin, and looked into the distance, quietly. Lu Wu was speechless. The battle was still going on. The huge sound wave blasted everyone away, and they even lost a large chunk of their HP. At this time, Night Goddess Land's song sounded again. Countless green light spots descended, and everyone's HP was almost depleted. Although they were both support players, Sun Qi was recognized as the #1 support player in the entire server, and Night Goddess Lan was the #1 support player in the Asia server. Although her healing ability was not as strong as Sun Qi's, she had a group buff ability, which was relatively more comprehensive. After recovering their HP, everyone quickly surrounded Xian Mo again and began to bombard him with skills. Compared to ordinary players, the wall-hacking players' abilities were reflected at this moment. Although they had never worked together before, they could cooperate very well in battle. They protected each other, advanced and retreated, and did not let Xian Mo touch them. Xian Mo, who had exhausted his spiritual power, could only fight passively. In a battle like this, the wall-hacking players were very calm. After all, they were not afraid of death. However, Xian Mo seemed to be a little uneasy, and he looked in Lu Wu's direction from time to time. He was afraid that the unkillable meat shield would sneak up on him, strangle him, and headbutt him. What a rascal! Just when the wall-hacking players were trying their best to kill Xian Mo, a player's voice sounded in the live chat channel. Bosses, who has materials? How about donating some? I have a way to kill him. When everyone heard this, they immediately looked up into the sky. At this moment, in the sky, several Ghost King-level zombie spirits were carrying a huge medicine refining furnace, and above the furnace was the bomber Niafeng. Hearing Niafeng's words, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Niafeng was now considered a very famous person. Everyone present knew about his ability, and at this moment, they immediately knew that this guy was going to do something big. Gu Yu immediately spoke in the live chat channel. I'll give you all the inventory in my channel. When you kill the demigod, give me a share of the loot. While speaking, Gu Yu sent the items in his channel in the form of an email to Niafeng, who was in the sky. Under Gu Yu's lead, not only the wall-hacking players, but the other players also began to raise funds. Although the cheaters were strong, not everyone was as rich as Gu Yu in terms of financial resources. On the contrary, there were many ordinary players who were rich and powerful. Seeing the incoming emails, Niafeng could not help but laugh. The art of explosion is about to begin. With the support of a large number of spiritual materials, Niafeng began the craziest medicine refining in history. Compared to before, Niafeng could already control the weak application of the dark rule power in his body, so he was full of confidence in refining this bomb, as long as he was given time. Seeing that Niafeng was about to make his move, the players immediately began to stall for time, locking the physically exhausted Xian Mo nearby. As time passed, everyone could clearly feel the waves of heat coming from the sky. Originally, everyone had planned to slowly grind this superboss to death, but now they had a better choice. However, at this time, Xian Mo also noticed the change in the sky. He had a bad feeling in his heart, and immediately roared as he ran toward the crowd, ready to break through. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart tightened. If Xian Mo really wanted to break through, they really did not have a good idea. Moreover, with Xian Mo's speed, it would not take long for him to run out of the attack range. If he missed, it would be a big loss. After all, although the bomber's damage was off the charts, it was also paid for and not an ultimate skill that could be casually used. Just as everyone was worrying, a familiar voice suddenly rang in their ears. Take this, strangle. Xian Mo, who was still running, was locked by the neck by Lu Wu, who pounced from behind and fell to the ground. At this moment, Xian Mo had a mental breakdown. What was meant to come would come. Brothers, let's retreat. At this time, Niefeng's trembling voice sounded in the live chat channel. When everyone heard this, they did not dare to stay. This was not a space for individual competition. This kind of super indiscriminate ultimate skill that even a team could not avoid was not something that an individual could withstand. Aside from the hanging wall, the players who were originally destroying the city also stopped and ran out of the city. F*CK, run. The bomber is using his ultimate skill. Fortunately, it's not blowing up the mansion of the dead this time. This is fun. Retreat quickly if you are too slow. You will definitely die. Amidst the commotion, the players ran for their lives and did not stop even after they ran out of the city. 20 minutes later, Niefeng, who finally could not control the medicine refining furnace, said in the live chat channel, "Great Demon King, let go!" Hearing Niefeng's words, who he decisively ordered the Ghost Kings to retreat. Instantly, the huge medicine refining furnace that had turned into a black light ball fell from the sky. Under the astonished gazes of the players outside the city, Niefeng, who was in the air, suddenly raised his hands in a pretentious manner and shouted, "Spicy Sky Match!" The players were speechless. Accompanied by Niefeng's roar, the black ball slowly landed in the city. Black light, a glaring black light, filled the entire world. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Chapter 610. Following Niefeng's shout, the alchemy furnace that had turned into a black ball of light fell from the sky and collided with the ground of the city. In an instant, the black light swept across. Everyone could not help but close their eyes. The world was covered in darkness at this moment. After a brief silence, the sky and the earth split apart. A roaring hurricane swept from the explosion point in all directions, destroying everything in its path. It was as if the end of the world had come. As the sky and earth collapsed, everything in the city turned into dust. This terrifying power made Xian Mo feel a strong sense of threat. He roared and tried to break free, but his body was firmly locked in place by Lu Wu. He could not move at all. In an instant, the black light struck and enveloped the two of them. Xian Mo, who had no more spiritual power to mobilize in his body to defend himself, let out an unwilling roar. Then his voice was covered by a loud noise, and his body began to disintegrate bit by bit under the black light. The players who had run far away felt as if there was a sudden clap of thunder in their ears. Then the earth shook and the mountains swayed. The glaring black light hurt their eyes, and they could not help but close their eyes. This movement lasted for more than 10 minutes. When the black light shrunk and faded, the players were shocked to find that a mushroom cloud rose above the city in the distance. Below it, there was a deep pit that was larger than the sky pit at the Mansion of the Dead. The players who saw this scene were completely stunned. Although everyone present knew that the explosion at the Mansion of the Dead was also caused by the Bomberman, it was a different story to see it with their own eyes. The shock of seeing the mushroom cloud rise up from such a close distance was indescribable. This was because such destructive power was too terrifying. Logically speaking, it was not something that the players could achieve at this stage. However, the Bomberman ignored the difference in levels and realms. Relying on the life class, he actually surpassed the players who walked the path of combat in terms of destructive power. At this moment, the players could not help but imagine what would happen if this bomb exploded at the Mansion of the Dead, in Hidden Dragon City, or in Burning Sky City. At this thought, the players trembled and even had the urge to strangle the tumor in advance. Fortunately, a bomb with such destructive power was not easy to make. The bomb that exploded in front of them was successfully made with the support of a large number of spiritual materials provided by the players. It could be said that the key to using this skill was not whether it was difficult to make the bomb, but whether there were soul coins to support the production of the bomb. This was because this bomb was completely made with a large number of spiritual materials and credit cards from the players. Of course, aside from Niafong, other players couldn't do this even if they had the money. At this moment, the players had a new understanding of the natural disaster. While the players were discussing it in the live chat channel, Lu Wu could not help but curse in his heart. In order to make Xian Mo take this blow head-on, his strangulation could be considered extremely successful. However, the violent dark energy that followed started tearing and destroying his body. With the help of the bloodlock hack, Lu Wu's body collapsed and reformed more than 10 times in the explosion. That kind of feeling really made him feel incomparably sour, and it left an endless aftertaste. He was holding a grudge on the spot. At that moment, Lu Wu, who was at full health, stood up from the deep pit. When the smoke and dust dissipated, he looked up and saw that everything around him was in ruins. Not to mention the buildings. The entire city had been destroyed in the explosion. Even Lu Wu was astonished by the destructive power of the attack. As expected of my future subordinate. Pride +1. At this time, the players walked into the deep pit one after another, heading towards the center of the explosion. At that moment, the players were worried that the new NPC would die on the spot in such an explosion. However, when they pushed away the flying dust and saw that Lu Wu was unscathed, they could not help but be dumbfounded. It can't be. How can he be so tanky? Even a demigod was vaporized. How can he be unscathed? Unbelievable. Could it be that the lousy officials gave this NPC a cheat code? Fortunately, he's still alive. I really don't want to see my people die. 666. No wonder he's a big tank that can exhaust a demigod to death. Awesome. Drag the word. Hearing the players' comments in the live chat channel, Lu Wu was speechless. What do they mean by no wonder he's a big tank that can exhaust a demigod to death? I'm your father behind the scenes. I'm so angry. Silently holding grudge, keeping it to himself. At this moment, the battle had finally come to an end. Naturally, there was no need for Lu Wu to stay any longer. He turned into a black fog and disappeared on the spot. At the same time, a game notification rang in the players' minds. Game notification. This cross-border battle has ended. The assisting NPC has returned. Starting to calculate the data. Game notification. In this cross-border battle, the ranking of each server is as follows. First place. Land of Baki second place. Land of Naraka third place. Land of Sangshi fourth place. Land of Demonic Spine fifth place. Land of Xianfeng. The ranking of the players was as follows. First place. Niafeng 645272. Battle Achievement second place. Hui 9728. Battle Achievement third place. AO Jian 8766. Battle Achievement fourth place. Tesla 7628. Battle Achievement fifth place. Eric 7542. Battle Achievement sixth place. Chi 6742. Battle Achievement. Following the appearance of the system notification, the Battle Achievement data panel appeared. Although they were mentally prepared, the players were still stunned when they saw Niafeng's battle achievement. It turned out to be so easy to get rich overnight. Even though Niafeng had already turned into a black fog in the explosion, the players still felt that he had made a huge profit. After all, how much was a life worth? How could it be compared to battle achievement? If it was possible, they would exchange their lives for it. At this moment, countless players were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. At this moment, the game notification rang again. Game notification. Discovered the resource point for this cross-border battle. Coordinates are XX. XXX. Players, please proceed to collect it. Game notification. Countdown to return, 60 minutes. Initially, the players thought that the battle was over and that they were about to return to their respective regions. However, they did not expect that there would be a resource point. Instantly, their faces lit up with joy, and they rushed toward the coordinates on the map. Soon, they arrived at the central area of the city before it was destroyed. There was a bottomless pit below. Based on the coordinates, The players knew that the resource point was inside. However, no one took the lead and walked in. Instead, they looked at each other, appearing extremely vigilant. The game notification definitely would not lie. It meant that there were definitely resources stored inside, and they belonged to whoever obtained them. However, the problem was that they belonged to whoever obtained them. The first thought that came to the minds of the players from the various servers was that even if they did not obtain them, their server must obtain them. The reason was simple. The competition between the various servers was getting more and more intense. Allowing other servers to obtain large amounts of resources would be extremely disadvantageous to the server they were in. This was especially so for the original server players. At this moment, there was only one thought in their minds. Being a father meant that one had to be a father for a lifetime. How could one just stand aside and do nothing? Therefore, they had to take this batch of resources. Therefore, the players who were working together to fight against the enemy just a moment ago turned hostile on the spot. Attention! A bastard assassin from the original server has sneaked in. Kill him for me, a player from the Naraka server. F***CK. The Naraka server made the first move. Kill them, a player from the original server. Everyone, follow me to attack the original server first. Once we get rid of the original server, we will be able to obtain the greatest benefits, a player from the European server. Brothers from the Asian server, follow me to attack the European server. Destroy the two strongest servers, and we will be able to obtain even more benefits. Brothers who don't, fight however you want. Fight whoever you see. F***CK them. Whoever wins will get the least amount of resources anyway, a commander from the weakest server. When they first walked into the pit, the players from the various servers got along very well. They chatted with each other with smiles on their faces. However, in the blink of an eye, a civil war broke out. At that moment, the thoughts of all the players were very simple. Other than the players that they submitted to, everyone else had to die. They had to die. In such a chaotic battle, even if there were players who were lucky enough to enter the pit, they could not avoid a fierce battle. As they fought in the tunnel, it was even more chaotic outside. In the end, the exasperated players began to drink potions from the shop and continued to fight. In the end, many players even gave up on the idea of moving resources. They just wanted to cruelly kill the opposing players, or they wanted to rub the other party's head on the ground and tell them who was the real daddy. In the chaotic battle, the most arrogant ones were the players from the non-servers. The players from the other 4 servers restrained each other, but the players from the non-servers had nothing to fear. Anyway, I am the weakest. Whoever wins will get the least amount of resources. I will F***king fight them all. I don't care who you are. I will F***king kill anyone in front of me. While they were clamoring in the live chat channel, they began to criticize the heavens, the earth, and the air. In every civil war, the one who benefited the most was always the stupid officials who were silently watching them. As time passed, Lu Wu sighed as he saw that the players were still crazily attacking each other. Then, a smile appeared on his face. In front of the portal under the city, there was a large amount of spiritual materials transported from the heavenly realm for Xian Mo to create zombie ghouls. Originally, Lu Wu wanted to give out a wave of benefits so that the players could get as much as they could. He did not expect the players to fight directly. Up until now, not much resources had been transported, and a large number of players had died. What a pity. It looks like we have to confiscate all of them. We gave you an hour. What a pity. Lu Wu could not help but shake his head and sigh. In the last 10 minutes, the direction of the battle between the servers changed. The players from the servers who did not get much resources suddenly changed their direction and began to beat the weakest non-server players. This is what you get for being so arrogant. This is what you get for being pretentious. This is what you get for scolding me. This is what you get for scolding the heavens, the earth, and the air. Stupid C***T, come over here and get beaten up. Therefore, the previously arrogant non-server players began to flee like rats. At this moment, they were a little confused. They said that you guys could fight and we could do whatever we wanted. How did it turn into the 4 servers beating the weakest non-server players? Inhumane. When we become stronger, all of you will die. I will remember this grudge. In the end, while the players from the 5 servers were cursing and swearing, a game notification appeared and they were sent back to their respective regions. Lu Wu also returned to the human world through teleportation. At the same time, he took away all the resources deep under the planet. His terrible mood suddenly became very good. Although this time's pretentious attempt was a failure, Lil Bei Li had said before he came that everyone has their first time. Lu Wu comforted himself like this. After bringing the artifact back to the 3 realms and connecting it to Lil Bei Li's subspace, Lil Bei Li's figure slowly appeared in the artifact. Seeing that Lu Wu had returned, Lil Bei Li suddenly squinted her eyes and smiled. "Big Meat Shield, you're back!" Lu Wu was confused.